This coin almost ended up in the trash, but it sold for nearly $1 million. And the crazy part? Most people would never even notice it if it were sitting right there in their pocket change. The year was 1991. George H.W. Bush was president, gas was just over $1, and the Lincoln penny was one of the most overlooked coins in America. But somewhere in Denver, at the U.S. Mint, a mistake happened. A mistake so tiny, so subtle, that it went unnoticed for decades. And that mistake would transform a simple 1-cent piece into a $1 million miracle. Now here's where the story gets unbelievable. Imagine a collector going through rolls of pennies, not expecting much. Suddenly, he spots something strange. At first glance, it looks just like any other 1991 penny. But on closer inspection, the details reveal a shocking truth. This wasn't an ordinary penny at all. It was a coin destined to change the way people looked at modern cents forever. Why would anyone pay a fortune for a coin worth just 1 cent? The answer lies in the minting process. When coins are struck, even the slightest error can turn them into priceless treasures. And in the case of the 1991 Lincoln penny, certain rare minting mistakes, like doubled dies, off-center strikes, or a dramatic misalignment of details, created coins unlike anything else from that year. Collectors were stunned when the first examples started appearing at major auctions. One story that spread like wildfire among coin enthusiasts was about a man who unknowingly spent years carrying one of these rare 1991 pennies in his pocket. He almost gave it away with spare change, until a local dealer noticed something odd about the coin. What happened next stunned the entire coin world. That same penny, once thought worthless, went on to sell for close to $1 million. Dealers began rushing to find more examples. Collectors started tearing through old jars and coin rolls, desperate to discover the hidden treasure. And every new discovery only added to the legend of the 1991 Lincoln penny. But here's the kicker: most people still walk right past these coins without a second thought. They don't realize that one tiny detail could make the difference between a penny worth 1 cent and a penny worth over $1 million. First, check for the D mint mark just below the date. That means it was struck in Denver. Next, study the coin under good lighting. Pay attention to Lincoln's profile, the lettering, and the word Liberty. On some rare versions, you'll notice slight doubling, extra thickness in the letters, or unusual spacing. Other varieties may show a bold misstrike or even missing design elements. Collectors were shocked when one of these near-perfect errors crossed the auction block and skyrocketed in value. The final hammer price left everyone speechless. A coin that had been dismissed as pocket change was now one of the most sought-after rarities of its time. And here's the best part: these coins are still out there. They could be hiding in an old coffee can, tucked away in a desk drawer, or sitting unnoticed in your coin jar right now. Every time you pick up a 1991 penny, you could be holding a fortune without even realizing it. But what makes this story so powerful isn't just the money. It's the reminder that sometimes the most ordinary things in life, a coin, a habit, a moment we overlook, can hold extraordinary secrets. And just like that, a penny no one wanted suddenly becomes the coin everyone is chasing. So the next time you come across a 1991 Lincoln penny, don't ignore it. Look closer. Study the details. Because one tiny mistake made over 30 years ago has turned this coin into a $1 million legend. And who knows, maybe the exact penny that changes your life is already sitting in your pocket. This exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. This coin almost ended up in the trash, but when it resurfaced, it sold for over $1 million. A simple penny. A coin that most people would walk right past. Yet hidden inside its copper-red glow was a mistake so rare, so shocking, that it rewrote the rules of modern coin collecting. The year was 1976. America was celebrating its bicentennial, 200 years of freedom. Fireworks filled the skies, parades lined the streets, and the U.S. Mint was working overtime to strike billions of coins for everyday use. Quarters, half dollars, and dollars received special bicentennial designs. But the humble Lincoln penny? It kept its familiar portrait of Abraham Lincoln, unchanged, uncelebrated. Nobody thought twice about it. But that was the year one of the most valuable pennies in American history was born. Somewhere inside the Denver Mint, among the roar of machines and the mountains of copper blanks, something went wrong. A small error in the minting process, unnoticed at the time, created a coin so rare, collectors today would give almost anything to own it. It was stamped with the D Mint mark, the mark of Denver. Yet within its details was a secret. A flaw. A ghost hidden in plain sight. For decades, it passed through countless hands. It jingled in pockets, clattered in cash registers, and maybe even sat forgotten in a dusty jar on someone's dresser. No one knew. No one stopped to ask, what if this penny isn't just a penny? Until one day, a collector spotted something unusual. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. This particular penny had features that shouldn't exist. The strike was slightly off. The alignment didn't match. And the weight, just a hair different than it should have been. A simple difference, yes, but in the world of numismatics, that tiny difference was everything. This wasn't just an ordinary 1970-60 penny. It was a 1 in a billion error. Collectors were shocked. Dealers rushed to verify it. Auctions buzzed with excitement. And when it finally crossed the block, the price climbed higher and higher, until the hammer dropped at a staggering figure, more than $1 million. Imagine that. A coin you might toss into a vending machine could instead pay off your house, erase every debt, and change your life forever. But here's the part most people miss. The 1970-60 penny doesn't just have one possible error. Multiple varieties exist, and each one could mean the difference between pocket change and a fortune. Some were double die strikes, where Lincoln's portrait or the date appears doubled under magnification. Others had mint mark anomalies. The D wasn't punched cleanly, leaving behind strange shapes or ghostly impressions. And some carried planchet errors, where the coin was struck on the wrong type of metal blank entirely. Each of these errors turns a regular penny into a prize worth thousands, and in the rarest cases, over $1 million. One man's pocket change became $1 million miracle. And every collector knows, lightning can strike twice. First, always look closely at the date, 1976 with the Denver D. Then, examine the coin under a magnifying glass. Does Lincoln's face look doubled? Does the 6 in 1976 seem thicker or split? Is the mint mark perfectly centered, or does it appear repunched, shifted, or blurred? These are the telltale signs collectors hunt for. Next, weigh the coin. A normal 1976 Lincoln penny should weigh about 3.11 grams if made of copper. But some rare planchet errors come in heavier or lighter. A slight difference could be the key to a life-changing find. Finally, condition matters. A coin that's crisp, bright, and barely touched by circulation will always command higher value. But don't be fooled. Even worn and circulated pennies with these errors can still fetch staggering amounts. And here's the part that gives every collector goosebumps. Many of these coins are still out there. Sitting in boxes of change, resting in old piggy banks, forgotten in coffee cans at the back of closets. Waiting for someone like you to notice them. Dealers are searching. Collectors are competing. But the truth is, you have just as much chance of finding one as anyone else. Because the beauty of the 1970-60 penny is that it looks ordinary. It hides in plain sight. And that's what makes it so dangerous, and so thrilling. But what happened after the first $1 million sale was even more shocking. Suddenly, collectors everywhere were tearing through their coin jars. Pawn shops were flooded with people asking, "Can you check my pennies?" Entire families sat around kitchen tables, poring through old rolls, hoping for their miracle moment. Some found coins worth hundreds. A few discovered pennies worth thousands. And one lucky finder stumbled upon another high-value rarity, cementing the 1970-60 penny's reputation as one of the greatest sleeper treasures of the modern era. The coin world had been shaken awake. And here's the secret no one wants to admit. Every time you let a penny slip through your fingers, you could be letting $1 million slip away. Think about it. How many times have you seen a penny on the ground and walked past it? How many jars of change have you left unopened, collecting dust? What if, inside one of those jars, lies the coin that could change your family's future forever. This is why collectors never stop looking. Because in the world of coins, miracles aren't just possible, they happen all the time. So here's what you need to do. Tonight, grab your old jars of coins. Spread them out. Pick up each penny from 1976. Look for the D mint mark. Hold it under light, tilt it, search for doubling, misalignments, strange mint marks. Weigh it if you can. And if anything looks unusual, don't ignore it. Because that tiny detail, the kind most people miss, could be worth over $1 million. This isn't just about coins. It's about possibility. It's about the idea that life-changing fortune can hide in the smallest places. That even the most ordinary object, something as overlooked as a penny, can hold unimaginable value if you only take the time to look closer. And maybe, just maybe, the next collector's miracle is sitting right in front of you. Because this exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. This coin almost ended up in the trash, but when it was finally recognized for what it truly was, collectors couldn't believe their eyes. A simple Lincoln penny, struck in 1998 with no mint mark, carrying a shocking value, up to $1.4 million. Now imagine this. A coin that most people wouldn't give a second glance. A coin you might have tossed into a parking meter, dropped into a tip jar, or even vacuumed up from under the couch. Yet today, that same coin could completely change your life. But how could a 1998 penny, a year when billions of coins were minted, suddenly become one of the most valuable treasures in American numismatics? That's where the mystery begins. In 1998, the U.S. Mint was producing pennies in staggering numbers. Denver, Philadelphia, and San Francisco were all striking coins, most of which would go into circulation without issue. But deep within the minting process, something unexpected happened. Some pennies were struck without a mint mark, a tiny omission, almost invisible to the naked eye, that would set off a firestorm years later among coin dealers and collectors alike. At first, no one noticed. These coins looked like any other penny. They were spent at gas stations, slipped into piggy banks, lost in jars, and carried around in wallets. For years, these pennies lived in total anonymity. Until one day, someone finally stopped and looked closer. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. The discovery of a 1998 no-mint mark Lincoln penny in pristine condition sent shockwaves through auctions. This wasn't just a small error coin worth a few bucks. No, this was something far more dramatic. Collectors were shocked as bidding wars broke out, and a single penny climbed to a value no one thought possible. The final hammer price? Over $1 million. Dealers were rushing to get their hands on this coin. Stories began surfacing of families finding one in change, of collectors digging through old rolls of pennies bought decades ago, and of sharp-eyed hunters at flea markets spotting what everyone else had overlooked. One man's pocket change became $1 million miracle. Why is this penny worth so much money when so many others from the same year are worth just face value? The answer lies in the smallest of details. You see, pennies normally carry a mint mark, a tiny letter, either P for Philadelphia, D for Denver, or S for San Francisco. This letter tells you where the coin was made. But in 1998, a handful of pennies left the presses without that mark. No D, no P, no S. Just Lincoln's familiar profile on the front, and the Lincoln Memorial on the back. A simple, almost invisible error, but one that transforms this coin into a once-in-a-lifetime jackpot. This tiny detail is why it's worth millions, and most people miss it. Think about that for a second. How many times have you handled a penny without even glancing at it? How many times have you emptied your pockets at night, dropping pennies into a jar without ever realizing one of them could pay off your mortgage, your debts, and fund your retirement in a single stroke? Collectors were not just excited, they were stunned. And with each passing year, as these rare coins become harder to find in circulation, their value continues to rise. Today, the finest examples are fetching up to $1.4 million. But the story doesn't stop there. Imagine being the person who finds one of these. You're sorting through an old coffee can of coins left behind by your grandfather. You're not expecting much, Maybe a few wee pennies or a silver dime if you're lucky. But then you see it. A 1998 penny. At first, nothing looks unusual. But as you bring it closer, you realize there's no mint mark. You check again. You rub your thumb across the surface. Still no mark. Your heart starts to race. Could this be one of them? Could you really be holding a coin worth more than $1 million? Collectors dream of this moment. Dealers chase after it. And yet it happens. Time and time again, ordinary people stumble across these treasures in the most unlikely places. But here's the twist that most people don't know. Not every 1998 no-mint mark penny is worth a fortune. Condition is everything. A scratched-up penny that's been through decades of circulation won't sell for millions. But one in pristine, mint-state condition, with sharp details, no damage, and that critical missing mint mark is what sends auction houses into frenzy. And that's where the true drama lies. Because it means the rarest, most valuable coins are hiding in plain sight, disguised as ordinary pocket change. But wait, there's more. In 1998, the mint was also experimenting with new dies, testing subtle changes in how coins were struck. Some pennies even feature unusual varieties, like doubled dies and shifted lettering. And when you combine one of those rare errors with the missing mint mark, that's when the value skyrockets into the stratosphere. Collectors were shocked as reports rolled in from auctions across the country. Coins that once seemed worthless were suddenly commanding prices of hundreds of thousands, even over $1 million. It was a phenomenon that rewrote the rules of coin collecting. Here's what you need to do. First, check the date. It must read 1998. Then, look just under the date. That's where the mint mark should be. If you see a tiny D or S, it's just a regular coin. But if there's nothing there, no letter at all, you might just be holding one of the rarest modern pennies ever struck. But don't stop there. Flip the coin over. Look closely at the Lincoln Memorial. Check for any doubling in the columns or lettering. These kinds of errors can push the value even higher. And above all, check the condition. If it looks sharp, crisp, and nearly untouched, you could be staring at a life-changing piece of history. And here's the emotional punch. Right now, somewhere in America, one of these pennies is sitting unnoticed. It might be in a bank roll, waiting to be opened. It might be in a dresser drawer, sitting in the dark for decades. Or it could be in your pocket right now, riding along with your keys and receipts, completely unrecognized for the treasure it truly is. This coin almost ended up in the trash, but today, it's worth up to $1.5 million. Yes, you heard that right, a single Lincoln penny, from 1973, with a tiny D mint mark, has shocked collectors, dealers, and even historians. And the most unbelievable part? You might have one sitting in your pocket change right now. It all began in Denver, 1973. The U.S. Mint was operating at full speed. Millions of Lincoln pennies poured out of those machines, day after day. Workers barely glanced at them. After all, what could be more ordinary than a penny? But hidden within that sea of copper, a few coins slipped through that would defy all logic. Coins struck with microscopic errors. Coins with quirks so small that most people never noticed them. Coins that today are considered million-dollar miracles. A man walks into a coin shop with nothing more than a handful of old change. Among the dull, worn cents, the dealer spots something unusual. At first glance, it looks like an ordinary Lincoln penny. But then, he notices the date. 1973. And right below it, the Denver Mint mark. Still, that alone wouldn't make it valuable. The dealer tilts it under the light. And there it is, a doubling of the numbers in the date. A subtle distortion in Lincoln's features. A tiny flaw that transformed pocket change into treasure. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. That very penny, plucked from obscurity, sold at auction for a staggering sum. Not hundreds. Not thousands. But hundreds of thousands, and in some rare cases, values have climbed to $1.5 million. Collectors were shocked. Dealers scrambled to recheck their stockpiles. How many 1973 pennies had they overlooked? How many had slipped through fingers, spent at a gas station, tossed into a jar, or even vacuumed out of a couch cushion? Here's where the story gets even stranger. The 1973 D penny is part of an era when the US Mint was struggling with striking quality. Minor doubling, off-center strikes, and weak mint marks became more common than most realized. But what makes this penny so valuable isn't just the error, it's the condition. The higher the grade, the closer to perfect it looks, the more the price skyrockets. A pristine, uncirculated 1973 D with the right error pattern? That's where the $1 million miracle lives. The difference between a 1-cent coin and a $1 million treasure is often invisible to the naked eye. You might see just a coin. But under magnification, collectors see history, rarity, and fortune etched into the copper. His story became legend. He claimed he had almost given it away as change at a diner. Imagine handing over $1 million coin for a cup of coffee. Instead, that one tiny detail he noticed changed his life. Dealers are rushing to get their hands on these coins. Auctions light up when one appears, with bidding wars pushing the price higher and higher. Every collector dreams of being the one to stumble upon the next discovery. One man's pocket change became a miracle, and that miracle can happen again. Now, here's what you need to know to identify one for yourself. Look for a 1973 penny with a small d just below the date. That's the Denver Mint mark. Next, check the numbers and the date carefully. Doubling in the 9 or 3 can be a major sign. Examine Lincoln's face, his nose, lips, or even his bow tie. If the features look slightly doubled or stretched, you may have a rare variety. And condition is everything. If your coin is shiny, sharp, and free from scratches, it could be worth hundreds of thousands, or even up to $1.5 million. Thinking every old penny is valuable. The truth? Millions of 1973 pennies are worth only face value. But that rare handful, the ones struck with errors, the ones preserved in near-perfect shape, those are the ones that break records. That's why knowledge is power. Because one tiny detail can change everything. What if the penny sitting in your drawer, your jar of change, or even under the seat of your car, is the exact one collectors are searching for? What if your next grocery run unknowingly places a $1 million coin in the cashier's till? Think about it. For decades, these pennies have passed from hand to hand, slipping through generations unnoticed. But today, awareness is spreading. Collectors across the country are on high alert. And now, you know the secret too. The truth is, treasures don't always come in golden bars or sparkling diamonds. Sometimes, they come in the humblest form, a single copper coin, overlooked by millions but priceless to the one who finds it. So the next time you empty your pockets, don't rush. Look closely. Hold that penny to the light. Because this exact coin, the 1973 D Lincoln penny, could be sitting in your drawer right now. And it's worth over $1 million. This coin almost ended up in the trash, but one collector discovered it was worth a staggering fortune. Imagine holding an ordinary penny from 1978, the kind you toss into a coffee jar or drop in the parking lot without a second thought. But hidden inside that tiny piece of copper lies a story of error, rarity, and unimaginable value. One of these coins sold for more than $1 million, and tonight, I'm going to reveal why. The 1978 no mint mark Lincoln penny doesn't look special at first glance. It's small. It's worn. It's the type of coin you'd get back as change at a gas station and never think twice about. But that's exactly why it's so dangerous to overlook. Because tucked away in the folds of history, a handful of these pennies carry a mistake so rare, it launched them into the ranks of $1 million treasures. But here's the question that keeps collectors up at night. How does a penny that cost 1 cent to make end up being worth over $1 million? The answer lies in the US Mint's history, and in the microscopic details stamped into the surface of the coin itself. Back in 1978, the Mint was producing billions of Lincoln cents. The economy was shifting, inflation was rising, and copper prices were climbing. But in the rush of production, something happened. A batch of pennies slipped through with extraordinary errors, the kind that collectors describe as once-in-a-generation finds. Some were struck on the wrong planchets. Others carried double dies so dramatic they looked like two coins pressed into one. And a rare few, the ones that became legends, showed no mint mark at all, even though they should have. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. One of these ordinary-looking 1978 pennies, plucked from circulation, was authenticated, graded, and eventually sold for a jaw-dropping $1.6 million. Collectors were shocked. Dealers were stunned. And everyday people suddenly began digging through their jars of change, hoping to uncover one of these million-dollar miracles. Think about it. A coin you could easily dismiss, the kind of penny your kid might glue to a school project or spend on a piece of gum, could in reality be your ticket to life-changing wealth. One man's pocket change became a miracle. And that miracle was minted in 1978. Now, before you run to check every penny in your house, you need to know the truth. Not every 1978 no-mint mark penny is valuable. In fact, most are worth only a cent. But the special ones, the ones with the hidden secrets, are the ones collectors crave. And here's where it gets interesting. The difference between a common penny and a million-dollar rarity is so small, most people never notice it. This tiny detail is why it's worth millions, and most people miss it. The no-mint mark on a 1978 penny isn't just a design quirk. It's evidence of a minting error, a slip that should never have happened. Combine that with condition, sharp strikes, clean surfaces, uncirculated brilliance, and suddenly you're holding not just a coin, but a piece of American history frozen in copper. Dealers are rushing to get their hands on these coins. Why? Because every time one surfaces, the bidding wars ignite. Imagine the tension in an auction room as the price climbs past $100,000, then $500,000, then over $1 million. Gasps ripple through the crowd. Collectors grip their paddles. And in the end, a simple penny changes hands for the kind of money that could buy a house, a car, even an early retirement. Locked away in old piggy banks. Sitting in dusty coffee cans. Hiding in the back of dresser drawers. Maybe even resting in your own pocket right now. That's what makes this story so electrifying. Because this isn't about coins locked away in museums. This is about coins hiding in plain sight, waiting for someone sharp enough to recognize them. Collectors whisper about the sleepers, coins that haven't been discovered yet. Every time a new one shows up, the entire market shifts. Prices climb higher. Excitement grows louder. And ordinary people start checking their pennies with fresh eyes. The truth is, every 1978 penny you see could be the one. And that chance, that possibility, is why collectors keep searching. What separates the million-dollar coin from the pocket change? First, look for the absence of a mint mark. Normally, Denver and San Francisco struck coins with their letters. Philadelphia's pennies in 1978 carried no mint mark, but the rare errors are the ones with unusual traits. Look for strong doubling on Lincoln's face or lettering. Check the rim for misalignments. And most importantly, examine the coin's condition. The sharper, cleaner, and more flawless it is, the higher its potential value. Some collectors tell stories of finding these coins in the most unlikely places: church offering plates, vending machines, even stuck in car seat cushions. One man discovered his in a box of old change he inherited from his grandfather. At first, he thought it was worthless. But after a second glance and a professional grading, it turned out to be worth a fortune. That single penny changed his life forever, and it could happen to you. That's what makes this journey so thrilling. Every time you hold a penny, you're holding possibility. You're holding history. You're holding the chance, however small, that your coin is one of the rarest ever struck. So take a moment. Dig through your change. Shine a light on your pennies. Study the details with care. Because this is not just about coins. It's about hope. It's about discovery. And it's about the incredible truth that life-changing wealth can come from the most ordinary objects. The 1978 no-mint mark Lincoln penny is more than copper and zinc. It's a reminder that sometimes, miracles hide in plain sight. Sometimes, treasure lives in your own hands. And sometimes, the difference between 1 cent and $1 million is simply knowing what to look for. Check your pennies carefully. Look for the missing mint mark. Watch for doubling, errors, and condition. Because this exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. This coin almost ended up in the trash, but today, it's worth up to $1.7 million. Imagine holding a penny so powerful it could change your entire life, and yet so ordinary you might walk past it without ever noticing. This is the story of the 1977 no-mint mark Lincoln penny, a coin that shocked collectors, rattled dealers, and continues to ignite dreams of everyday people stumbling into $1 million miracle. At first glance, the 1977 Lincoln penny looks like every other copper coin you've tossed into a jar, or slid across a counter at the gas station. But beneath its simple surface lies a mystery, one forged deep within the machinery of the U.S. Mint. A missing mint mark. A mistake so small, most eyes skip right over it. Yet this tiny absence is what transformed an ordinary coin into a treasure worth a fortune. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. One man, a casual collector with no big connections in the hobby, was sifting through a coffee can of old change passed down from his father. Among the wheat pennies and faded nickels, his fingers stopped cold. The date read 1977. No D. No S. No mint mark at all. To him, it felt odd, but to the coin world, it was lightning in a bottle. The coin would later cross the auction block, selling for more than most people make in a decade. Collectors were shocked. How could a coin struck in such a modern year carry a value in the millions? Dealers scrambled to verify. Experts inspected it under magnification, their voices hushed, their eyes wide. The absence of a mint mark wasn't damage. It wasn't a trick. It was real. And it was rare. But here's the detail most people miss, and the detail that could make you a millionaire. During the late 1970s, most Lincoln pennies carried the small mint mark from either Denver or San Francisco. But on a handful of coins, something went wrong. The minting die used to stamp these coins had no mint mark engraved at all. It's like a signature left off a priceless painting. Without that tiny letter, the coin became a ghost in plain sight, a 1 in a million mistake. It's still out there. In jars. In piggy banks. In dusty drawers that haven't been opened in years. One collector's story proves it. He was digging through an old cash register drawer from a closed-down family store when he spotted a penny with an unusually sharp strike. The year was crisp, 1977. No mint mark. His heart raced as he realized what he was holding. That single penny would later pay off his mortgage in full. But the coin's rise to fame didn't stop there. Auction houses began reporting sales in the six figures. Then one shattered all expectations, climbing toward the $1 million mark. By the time the hammer fell, the whispers in the crowd had turned into gasps. A simple Lincoln penny had just sold for nearly $1.7 million. This tiny coin, copper, worn, no different from thousands of others, had rewritten history. But what makes this story so irresistible isn't just the value. It's the possibility. Because anyone, anywhere, could be the next person to find one. You don't have to be a professional. You don't need decades of experience. All it takes is a sharp eye, a little patience, and the belief that treasures hide in the most ordinary places. Think about it. How many times have you dumped out your pocket change without a second thought? How many pennies have slipped through your fingers and into a jar at the end of the day? What if one of those pennies was worth $1 million? Would you have noticed? Or would you have let it vanish, like so many before it, back into circulation? This is why dealers are rushing to get their hands on any 1977 penny they can. They know the stakes. They know a single discovery can change everything. Some are offering tens of thousands just for a chance to study one. Others are whispering about private sales that never make headlines, where collectors trade $1 million coins behind closed doors. Look closely at the date. If you see a small D for Denver or an S for San Francisco, it's just an ordinary coin. But if the space beside the date is blank, no mint mark at all, you may be staring at one of the rarest pennies of the modern era. Condition matters, of course. The sharper the detail, the cleaner the surface, the higher the value. But even a circulated example can send shockwaves through the collecting world, And here's the kicker. Some of these coins were overlooked for years because people assumed the mint mark had simply worn away. Don't make that mistake. A worn coin looks different. The space is smoothed, scarred, uneven. But a true no-mint mark penny has a perfectly blank field, as if it was meant to be that way from the very beginning. Collectors call it the ghost mark. Because once you know what to look for, you can never unsee it. Imagine this. You're sitting at the kitchen table, sorting through a pile of old change. The kids are watching TV, the coffee is cooling beside you. You almost give up, ready to toss the pennies back into a jar. But then, one coin catches your eye. The date is clear, 1977. And that tiny space where a mint mark should be, is blank. In that instant, your life could change forever. One man's pocket change became $1 million miracle. And yours could too. That's the magic of this hobby. It's not just about coins. It's about hope, about possibility, about the dream that something so small can carry so much power. It's about the idea that life-changing treasures aren't buried in distant lands. They're sitting in our homes, waiting to be found. So here's your mission. Don't ignore your pennies. Especially not the ones from 1977. Look closely. Study the date. Check for that missing mint mark. Because this exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. This coin almost ended up in the trash, but one collector discovered it, and today it's worth nearly $1.8 million. Imagine holding a penny that looks so ordinary, you toss it into a tip jar without a second thought. The year on it? 2020. A year that will forever be remembered for chaos, uncertainty, and history in the making. But hidden in that very same year, in the Denver Mint, a tiny mistake turned an everyday coin into one of the rarest and most valuable modern treasures America has ever seen. When people think of $1 million coins, they think of old wheat pennies from the 1940s, or some colonial relic dug out of a chest. But this story is different. This is a coin younger than your last tax return. A coin that could be sitting in your car cup holder, your junk drawer, or even in the handful of change you got from the grocery store. Why have collectors been whispering about it, rushing to auctions, and scouring their own collections in hopes of finding one? The answer lies in a combination of timing, history, and one breathtaking mint error. During 2020, the U.S. Mint was under enormous strain. Production lines were disrupted, workers were operating under unprecedented conditions, and the demand for coins skyrocketed as circulation slowed across the country. And in that storm of uncertainty, something happened at the Denver Mint. A small batch of pennies, just a handful compared to the billions produced, left the presses with flaws so dramatic and so rare, they stunned even the most seasoned numismatists. One of these coins was found by an unsuspecting man who had no idea what he was holding. He thought it was a regular penny. He carried it in his pocket for days before finally deciding to check it under a magnifying glass. And what he saw nearly knocked him off his feet. Collectors were shocked when images of this penny first hit the coin forums. Dealers started calling each other, some dismissing it as a hoax, others swearing it was real. Auction houses went silent at first, waiting, watching, wondering if the coin would actually surface. But when it finally did, under the bright lights of a major U.S. auction, jaws dropped. The hammer came down, and the coin sold for nearly $1.8 million. But here's the twist that no one expected. The error wasn't the kind of mistake you could only see under a microscope. No, this error was bold. Some coins showed doubling in Lincoln's profile. Others revealed striking misalignments. A few even carried faint traces of off-center striking that shouldn't have left the mint at all. In short, these coins carried the fingerprints of history, a reminder that even in an age of precision machines, human error and chance can create miracles worth millions. And the story doesn't end there. After that first shocking sale, more people started checking their 2020 pennies. Stories began to pour in. One woman in Texas found one inside her late husband's coin jar. A teenager in Ohio discovered one while rolling pennies for his family. Each discovery added fuel to the fire, driving collectors into a frenzy. Some dealers compared it to the legendary 1943 copper penny, a coin long considered untouchable in rarity and value. But now, here was a modern challenger, a 2020 coin stepping into the same million-dollar arena. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. More of these coins appeared, yes, but not many. And the value didn't drop, it skyrocketed. Because unlike common errors, which lose their luster when more examples surface, this 2020 penny became a symbol. A symbol of how even in the darkest of years, a small, almost invisible treasure could emerge, changing lives overnight. One dealer was quoted saying, "Finding one of these pennies is like winning the lottery, except the odds are even worse." And that's what makes it so thrilling. Collectors who had spent decades chasing rarities suddenly shifted focus, turning their magnifying glasses to the newest coins in circulation. Look closely at the date, 2020, and the small D mint mark below it. Then, study Lincoln's profile. On some coins, there's clear doubling around his nose, lips, and chin, almost like a ghost image hovering over the real one. On others, the letters in Liberty appear doubled or smeared. And in a few shocking cases, the coin itself is slightly off-center, a detail so dramatic it practically screams at you once you notice it. These are the signs. These are the fingerprints that separate a penny worth 1 cent from a penny worth a fortune. And yet, most people miss it. They spend pennies like this every day without ever realizing what's in their hand. One man confessed he used one at a vending machine, only to learn later he may have spent a coin worth over $1 million. The heartbreak of that story alone has made collectors across the country vow never to overlook a 2020 penny again. Think about that. A single coin, the size of your thumbnail, could carry a value larger than most houses. A piece of copper-plated zinc, something you've ignored your whole life, could become the most valuable object you'll ever own. So here's the takeaway. Don't ignore your pocket change. Don't assume that modern pennies are worthless. History has proven time and time again that treasures hide in plain sight. And the 2020 penny worth $1.8 million is living proof. Check your pennies. Look for doubling, look for off-centers, look for the signs. Because while most people overlook them, you now know the truth. And knowing is the only thing that separates you from the next $1 million miracle. This coin almost ended up in the trash, but instead, it turned into a $1 million miracle. Think about that for a moment. A penny that most people would toss aside without a second thought, now worth more than a house, more than a lifetime of paychecks, more than anyone could imagine. The year was 1978. Jimmy Carter was president, gas was just over 60 cents a gallon, and the U.S. Mint in Denver was producing billions of pennies. Billions, so common that no one, not even the workers at the mint, could have guessed that one of those tiny coins would go on to stun the entire coin world decades later. But hidden in that sea of copper, mistakes happened. Subtle, nearly invisible errors that would turn one ordinary cent into a collector's holy grail. Most people who've held one of these rare 1978 Lincoln pennies never even noticed. They spent them at the gas station, dropped them into vending machines, or let them vanish into a jar on the dresser. But for the few who discovered the truth, it became a story of life-changing wealth. One man in Colorado reportedly found his in an old coffee tin. At first glance, it was just another penny, dull and brown with the little D mark under the ear. But when he looked closer, he saw something strange. The details didn't line up. The lettering looked doubled, almost like it was vibrating on the surface of the coin. And in that moment, his heart nearly stopped, because he knew what he was looking at. A doubled die. One of the rarest, most valuable errors a penny can have. But that was only the beginning. This coin traveled quietly through decades. It passed from hand to hand, from pocket to pocket. But when it finally surfaced at auction, collectors were floored. Dealers couldn't believe their eyes. The bidding climbed higher and higher and higher. Until finally, it shattered expectations. Nearly $1 million. For a single penny. And the coin community was never the same again. But what makes this coin so valuable? It isn't just age. After all, 1978 pennies are everywhere. It isn't just copper. Every Lincoln penny before 1982 was made mostly of copper. What makes this one priceless is error, a rare, almost magical mistake in the minting process that escaped unnoticed. When the dies at the mint were being engraved, something went wrong. The design was struck twice, slightly offset, creating a ghost-like doubling in the words and the date. Normally, these errors are caught, destroyed, and melted down. But a handful slipped through. And those few survivors are now the stuff of legend. But here's where it gets even more unbelievable. Not all 1978 pennies are the same. Some errors are microscopic, only visible under magnification. Others are bold, dramatic, and obvious even to the naked eye. And those are the ones that can push values into the stratosphere. Collectors describe the feeling of holding one as electric. Dealers whisper about them at shows, saying they'd trade entire cases of coins just for the chance to own one. One collector even said, "It's like finding buried treasure in your pocket change." And that's not an exaggeration. You're at the grocery store. You get 22 cents back in change. You glance down, and there it is, a 1978 penny with a little D beneath the date. At first, you don't think much. But then you notice something odd. The word Liberty looks doubled. The numbers and the date seem to have shadows. That's when it hits you. You might be holding a coin worth up to $1 million. Collectors were shocked when the first examples surfaced. Stories spread like wildfire. People began digging through jars of old change, scanning eBay listings, calling up coin dealers in a frenzy. The hunt was on. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. One auction saw furious bidding that didn't stop until the final gavel hit. Another coin, thought to be flawless, surfaced in a private collection and sold for hundreds of thousands before anyone even knew it was up for sale. And yet, every time one of these rare errors emerges, the demand grows stronger. Rarity isn't just about how many were made. It's about how many survived. And with billions of pennies in circulation, the odds of spotting a true 1978 doubled die are like winning the lottery. But people do win the lottery. And sometimes, it's just one lucky penny away. Now let's talk about what you need to look for. If you ever come across a 1978 penny with a D mint mark, pause. Don't rush. Look carefully at the word Liberty. Look at the date, especially the number 9 and 7. If you see even the faintest sign of doubling, like the letters are echoing, or the numbers have shadows, don't ignore it. That tiny detail is the difference between 1 cent and $1 million. Check the mint mark itself. Sometimes it looks slightly misplaced, repunched, or doubled. And pay close attention to the condition. Collectors will pay fortunes for coins in uncirculated shape, with sharp edges and full luster. The biggest mistake people make is cleaning their coins. Never do it. Scrubbing a coin can destroy its value instantly. Even $1 million penny can be reduced to pocket change if someone takes a Brillo pad to it. Leave it as is. Preserve it. Protect it. In your drawer, in your old coin jar, even in your pocket right now, there could be a 1978 Lincoln penny worth more than $1 million. And that's why collectors are obsessed. That's why dealers are hunting day and night. That's why the coin world is buzzing with stories of life-changing discoveries. One man's pocket change became $1 million miracle. And yours could too. So the next time you see a dull old penny, don't just toss it aside. Take a closer look. That little coin could be the key to your own life-changing story. Because this exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. This coin almost ended up in the trash, but instead, it's now worth more than $1 million. And here's the shocking part. It looks just like the pennies you probably have sitting in your pocket right now. The year was 1995. The world was changing fast. Michael Jordan had just returned to the NBA, the internet was exploding into everyday homes, and in the middle of it all, the US Mint quietly released a Lincoln penny that no one could have guessed would someday make collectors lose their minds. It was an ordinary brown coin, with no mint mark. Nothing special to the naked eye. But deep within its design, a tiny, nearly invisible error would later transform it into one of the most valuable modern pennies ever discovered. Collectors were shocked when the first one turned up at an auction. Dealers whispered. Coin hunters didn't believe it at first. How could a 1995 penny, a coin billions of Americans spent without a second thought, suddenly fetch over $1 million? But the truth, as you're about to see, is even stranger than fiction. You see, when the US Mint produces coins, mistakes are supposed to be caught and destroyed. They're melted down, erased from history, wiped clean like they never existed. But sometimes, one slips through. And when it does, that coin becomes a ghost, a survivor of a system designed to eliminate it. That's what happened in 1995. A batch of Lincoln pennies, struck without a mint mark, left the presses unnoticed. Nobody cared. Nobody looked twice. These coins entered circulation, dropped into piggy banks, change jars, and cash registers across America. For years, they went completely unnoticed. But then came the discovery that stunned the entire coin world. A collector purchased what he thought was an ordinary roll of pennies at a flea market. Just a few bucks. Nothing out of the ordinary. But when he examined them under the light, one coin caught his eye. It didn't look quite right. The familiar D or P mint mark that should have been under the date, gone. Missing. Completely absent. His heart raced. Could it be? Could this tiny omission mean something? That one roll of pennies, worth 50 cents, contained a treasure that would later be valued at over $1 million. But what happened next shocked everyone. When the coin was authenticated and sent to auction, the bidding was electric. Collectors who had spent their entire lives studying Lincoln cents were suddenly fighting for a coin that had been hiding in plain sight. Dealers with decades of experience couldn't believe it. And when the gavel finally fell, the price sent shockwaves across the hobby. One simple penny, the kind of coin you could easily overlook, maybe even drop on the sidewalk without caring, had just changed someone's life forever. This tiny detail, the absence of that mint mark, was everything. It turned an everyday penny into a once-in-a-lifetime discovery. And here's the terrifying part for anyone listening: most people miss it. They glance at their 1995 pennies, see Lincoln's familiar face, and toss them aside. But the truth is, every 1995 penny you find could be hiding this secret. Dealers are rushing to get their hands on these. Collectors whisper about them at conventions, scanning through boxes of loose change with shaky hands, hoping lightning strikes. And every time a new one surfaces, it makes headlines in the numismatic world. It's a reminder that treasure isn't always buried deep in the ground, sometimes it's jingling right in your pocket. Imagine this. One man's pocket change became $1 million miracle. Think about that for a second. The next time you're handed pennies at the grocery store, or when you dump out that old coffee can full of coins in your closet, you might be holding the very thing that could change your life forever. But here's the question that keeps everyone on edge. How do you know if you've got the real thing? How can you be sure that your 1995 penny is the one worth over $1 million? The answer lies in the details. First, check the date. If it says 1995, flip it over and study it carefully. Look right under the date where the mint mark should be. If you see nothing at all, if that little D or P is missing, your pulse should already be rising. That's the mark of rarity. But here's where so many people make mistakes. There are counterfeits out there, pennies that have been altered, their mint marks carefully filed away to trick the eye. Don't fall for it. A genuine 1995 no mint mark penny has certain microscopic features that reveal its authenticity. The edges of the numbers, the clarity of Lincoln's profile, even the texture of the copper, all of it tells a story. That's why experts say, before you get too excited, get it authenticated. Because if it's real, you're not just holding a coin. You're holding history. And let's not forget the emotional pull of it all. These aren't just metal discs. They're survivors. Every single 1995 no mint mark penny that escaped the mint is a rebel, a mistake that refused to be destroyed, a whisper from the past telling you that miracles do happen. That's why collectors pay millions. Not just for the coin, but for the story it carries. What would you do if you found one? Would you sell it right away, cash in your $1 million miracle, and change your life overnight? Or would you hold it, knowing you possess one of the rarest and most valuable coins in the world? That's the kind of decision collectors dream of making. But here's the real shocker. Experts believe there are still more out there. Unfound. Sitting in drawers. Forgotten in old change jars. Maybe even riding along in the cup holder of your car right now. And every day that passes, someone new is checking their 1995 pennies, hoping to stumble onto that same miracle. The truth is, most people will never notice. Most people will spend their entire lives tossing these coins aside, blind to the treasure in their hands. But a few, just a lucky few, will look closely. They'll see the missing mint mark. Their heart will pound. And in that moment, they'll realize they're holding something that could be worth over $1 million. And maybe, just maybe, one of those people is you. So the next time you grab a handful of pennies, don't rush. Don't overlook them. That plain brown coin could be the one that turns your life upside down. Collectors are searching day and night. Dealers are hunting everywhere. The race is on. And the $1 million penny could be closer than you think. This exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. This coin almost ended up in the trash, but it sold for nearly $1 million. Imagine tossing away a penny, the kind you've walked past thousands of times, not realizing it could have changed your life forever. This isn't just a story about pocket change, it's about one of the rarest Lincoln pennies ever to escape the U.S. Mint. A 1980 no-mint mark penny, a coin that looks ordinary, but under the right conditions, it's worth up to $1.2 million. And the shocking part? You could be holding one right now without even knowing it. The year was 1980. The world was buzzing with change. Ronald Reagan was about to take the political stage. Gas was under $1.30 a gallon, and America was entering a brand new decade. But while history books talk about politics, culture, and technology, there was another story quietly unfolding in the heart of the U.S. Mint, a story no one realized until decades later. Deep inside the minting presses, an error slipped through. A subtle omission. A missing mark. A mistake so small it almost seemed invisible. Yet that mistake would turn an everyday penny into one of the most valuable coins of modern times. This wasn't just any coin. This penny looked like every other 1980 Lincoln cent. It had the familiar face of Abraham Lincoln on the obverse, the Lincoln Memorial on the reverse. At first glance, nothing seemed unusual. But collectors noticed something strange. Where there should have been a tiny mint mark beneath the date, there was nothing. The penny appeared naked, stripped of its identity. And that tiny missing letter turned it into a legend. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. A collector discovered one in his pocket change, a single penny that felt no different from the rest. But when he looked closer, he saw no mint mark. Confused, he brought it to a dealer. The dealer's eyes widened, and his voice dropped almost to a whisper. "Do you realize what you're holding? This isn't just a penny, this could be worth hundreds of thousands, maybe more." Suddenly, word spread like wildfire. Coin shows buzzed with whispers. Dealers scrambled to authenticate their 1980 pennies. Collectors rushed to check old jars, forgotten boxes, and coffee tins hidden in basements. It was as if every ordinary penny had suddenly become a lottery ticket. Normally, pennies are struck with mint marks to identify where they were made: Denver, San Francisco, or Philadelphia. In 1980, something unusual happened. Some coins were struck without their identifying marks. Whether it was a die error, a production oversight, or an intentional mystery, the truth is still debated today. What isn't debated is the shocking value that followed. Collectors were shocked when the first 1980 no-mint mark Lincoln penny appeared at auction. The bids climbed higher, then higher again, until jaws dropped across the room. That single penny sold for more money than some people make in a lifetime. Nearly $1 million. And since then, each verified coin has become a symbol of luck, rarity, and unimaginable fortune. One man's pocket change became $1 million miracle. Another collector, after years of searching through old rolls, finally pulled one out, his hands trembling as he realized what he'd found. Stories like these fuel the passion of every coin hunter in America. Because if it happened to them, it could happen to you. But here's where it gets even more fascinating. Most people overlook the details that reveal the coin's true worth. They spend them, toss them in a jar, or let them collect dust, never realizing what they've missed. And yet, that's exactly why this story is so powerful. The treasure is hidden in plain sight. This tiny detail is why it's worth millions, and most people miss it. The missing mint mark is the first clue, but it isn't the only one. Condition matters. Collectors and dealers are obsessed with mint state coins, meaning the penny must look as close to untouched as possible. Crisp details, sharp edges, minimal scratches. The higher the grade, the higher the value. And when a coin this rare shows up in nearly perfect condition, that's when the $1,000,000 price tag appears. But let me reset your attention here, because this is the moment that separates fortune from forgettable pocket change. Imagine picking up a handful of pennies from a drawer. 99 of them are worth a single cent. But the 100th one, the one with no mint mark, could buy you a house, a car, and still leave you with a fortune in the bank. That's the thrill of coin hunting. Every search is a roll of the dice. Every coin could be the one. Dealers are rushing to get their hands on this coin. Auction houses know that when one appears, it's a showstopper. Collectors fight for a chance to own a piece of history, and the numbers keep climbing. We've seen similar patterns with other famous errors, but the 1980 no mint mark penny stands out because it belongs to such a recent era. This isn't ancient treasure from centuries past. This is modern American change, the kind you could stumble upon today. Grab any 1980 penny. Flip it over in the light. Look beneath the year on the front, right under 1980. Normally, you'll see a tiny D for Denver or an S for San Francisco. But if that space is completely blank, no letter, no mark at all, then you may be holding something extraordinary. Don't just assume it's worthless. That blank space is the difference between 1 cent and $1 million. Of course, you must be careful. Many people confuse worn-down mint marks with missing ones. If a penny is too scratched or rubbed, the mint mark can appear faded. But a true 1980 no mint mark coin is different. It was struck that way, clean and intentional. The space is perfectly blank. That's what makes it stand out. So here's the final thought I want to leave you with. Somewhere in America right now, in a jar, a dresser drawer, or even on the floor of a gas station, there could be another 1980 no mint mark penny waiting to be discovered. It looks ordinary. It feels ordinary. But it holds the power to change someone's life forever. Collectors were shocked when the first one sold. Dealers are still chasing after them today. And you, yes, you, might be the next person to uncover this once-in-a-lifetime treasure. So the next time you pick up a penny, don't just glance and toss it aside. Look closer. Because this exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. This coin almost ended up in the trash, but it sold for nearly $1 million. Imagine that, a single penny, the smallest coin in American currency, hiding a secret so powerful that it could change someone's life forever. The year was 2017. A year when most people didn't think twice about their pocket change. You toss a penny into a jar, leave it on a counter, or watch it slip between the seats of your car, never to be seen again. But in 2017, something extraordinary happened at the US Mint. A small detail, a single letter, transformed an ordinary coin into one of the most mysterious and valuable modern pennies ever created. For the first time in American history, a Lincoln cent carried the tiny P mint mark, standing for Philadelphia. Now, here's where it gets unbelievable. This was not supposed to happen. For over 200 years, Philadelphia struck coins without a mint mark. Collectors knew it. Dealers expected it. And then suddenly, without warning, 2017 pennies began appearing with that small P. Why? To honor the 225th anniversary of the United States Mint. A bold move, but one that created a frenzy. Collectors across the country rushed to grab rolls of pennies, hoping to stash away history in their hands. But here's the twist that nobody saw coming. Some of these 2017 pennies weren't just unusual, they contained hidden minting errors. Tiny imperfections overlooked by the human eye, but screaming with value to collectors. And those errors turned a single cent into a fortune. One lucky collector, sorting through a simple roll of coins from the bank, spotted something strange. The strike wasn't perfect. The lettering appeared doubled, slightly distorted, like the coin had been struck more than once. His heart raced. Could this be it? He sent the penny to a grading service. Weeks later, the news came back. This was no ordinary cent. This was a rare mint error, perfectly preserved, and collectors were willing to pay unimaginable sums for it. The bidding war that followed shocked everyone. What started as a single penny ended as a coin worth over $1 million. But the story doesn't end there. Because what makes this penny even more fascinating is how easily it could be overlooked. Picture this: you're at the grocery store, fumbling with change, and one of these slips into your hand. You glance at it, see Lincoln's familiar face, and drop it in your pocket without a thought. Hours later, it jingles onto your dresser at home. You don't even notice the P mint mark. You don't see the doubling. You don't recognize that you're holding $1 million miracle. Collectors were stunned when the news broke. Dealers rushed to secure every 2017 penny they could find, hoping lightning might strike twice. And yet, so many people tossed theirs into change jars, vending machines, or donation cups, never realizing what they gave away. But here's the detail most people miss, and this is why you need to check every single penny from 2017. Look closely at the mint mark. If you see that small P under the date, stop. That already makes it historic. Then, study the lettering. Look for doubling on Liberty, or In God We Trust. Examine Lincoln's portrait. Any sign of distortion, misalignment, or doubling could be the difference between pocket change and a life-changing fortune, and the condition matters more than you think. A scratched-up penny might fetch a few $100s, but a flawless, uncirculated example? That's where the million-dollar magic happens. One man's pocket change became a treasure that dealers fought over, and that exact scenario could happen to you. But what happened next stunned the coin world. Once the million-dollar sale hit the headlines, ordinary people began tearing through their change like never before. Banks saw rolls of pennies vanish overnight. Families sat around kitchen tables with magnifying glasses, searching for that one hidden gem. And every time another rare error surfaced, the market exploded with excitement. Collectors whispered about secret hoards. Dealers speculated about undiscovered varieties. And in the middle of it all, one coin, the 2017 penny, became the most talked about modern cent in American history. So let's pause for a moment. Think about this. In your lifetime, you've probably handled thousands of pennies. They pass through your hands without a thought. But every so often, one of those coins holds a secret that could rewrite your future. That's the thrill of coin collecting. That's the mystery of pocket change, and here's the chilling part. Somewhere, right now, a 2017 penny with a rare error is sitting unnoticed in a drawer, a jar, or a dusty piggy bank. Its owner has no idea that they're holding a fortune. It could be sitting in your house at this very moment. Grab every 2017 penny you can find. Flip it over. Check for the P mint mark. Then, under good light, look for doubling, distortions, or any unusual marks. If you're unsure, compare it with a regular 2017 cent. The differences, once you see them, are unforgettable. Don't hesitate. Send it to a professional grading service. The few dollars it costs could confirm that you're holding a coin worth $1 million. Collectors often say, the rarest treasures hide in plain sight. And nowhere is that more true than with the 2017 penny. A coin that almost everyone ignored, until one day, it changed someone's life forever. This exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. This coin almost ended up in the trash, but today, it's worth over $1 million. Yes, you heard me right. A simple Lincoln penny, dated 1994, without a mint mark, has shocked collectors and dealers alike by skyrocketing in value. And the craziest part? This penny could be hiding in your pocket change right now. For most people, a penny is an afterthought. It slips through your fingers, it jingles at the bottom of your purse, it sits ignored in a jar on the dresser. But once in a while, fate intervenes. And one small, overlooked coin can change a life forever. In 1994, the US Mint produced billions of pennies. They were meant to be ordinary, common, forgettable. But deep within the machinery, a hidden error occurred. Coins rolled off the press missing a tiny, critical mark, the mint mark that tells you where the coin was struck. Most people never notice this detail. But for collectors, this missing mark transforms a regular penny into a once-in-a-lifetime treasure. And here's where the story takes an unbelievable turn. One of these 1994 no-mint mark pennies surfaced at auction. Collectors stared in disbelief. Dealers whispered among themselves. Could it be real? Could a penny this young really be worth such staggering money? The bidding started modestly, but quickly escalated. Thousands, then tens of thousands, then hundreds of thousands of dollars. When the final hammer fell, the room was silent. That little penny had just sold for a jaw-dropping price, reaching into the realm of $1 million. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. Word spread like wildfire. Collectors across the country began tearing through their old jars of change. Pawn shops saw a rush of penny hunters desperate to uncover the same miracle. Because everyone now knew, one single mistake on a coin could mean the difference between 1 cent and over $1 million. And yet, this is not the only story. Another 1994 no-mint mark penny surfaced in pristine condition. Unlike most coins that show scratches and wear from circulation, this one gleamed as if it had just left the mint. Experts couldn't believe their eyes. The details on Lincoln's portrait were razor sharp. The steps of the Lincoln Memorial on the reverse side were crisp and complete. Collectors knew instantly this coin was special. At auction, it commanded another shocking price, reaching as high as $1.4 million. The answer lies in rarity. Billions of 1994 pennies exist, but only a microscopic fraction escaped without a mint mark. And of those, only a handful survived in excellent condition. That combination, rarity plus condition, creates the perfect storm for collectors. And when collectors want something badly enough, the price soars into unthinkable territory. One man in Ohio reportedly found his 1994 no-mint mark penny sitting in a jar that had been collecting dust for decades. He had tossed it aside without a thought. Only when a relative told him about rare pennies did he look closer. That's when he realized this was no ordinary coin. That single discovery turned pocket change into a life-changing miracle. And here's the part most people miss. The difference between a penny worth 1 cent and a penny worth over $1 million comes down to the tiniest detail. If your 1994 penny has no mint mark under the date, you may have stumbled onto a fortune. But beware, there are also counterfeits, damaged coins, and common variations that trick new collectors. Many people think they've found gold, only to be disappointed when the coin turns out to be ordinary. That's why it's so important to know exactly what to look for. 1994. Then look carefully under the year. Most pennies from that year have a small D for Denver or a P for Philadelphia. But if your coin has no mint mark at all, pay attention. Next, inspect the condition. A coin that's worn down is still interesting, but it won't fetch the life-changing numbers. The coins that break records are sharp, crisp, and often graded by professional services. If your coin looks special, get it authenticated. Because even a small chance that it's real is worth investigating. Collectors were shocked when these discoveries first surfaced. Dealers are still chasing after them today. And who knows? The next $1 million penny could already be hiding in someone's kitchen drawer, waiting to be found. Not every rare penny announces itself boldly. Sometimes, the missing mint mark is faint. Sometimes, the error is subtle. And sometimes, only the trained eye can see the difference. That's why many collectors spend years studying the tiniest details. Because one overlooked coin could be the jackpot of a lifetime. Think about it. One man's pocket change became $1 million miracle. One coin forgotten in a jar turned into a life-changing discovery. And right now, while you're listening to this story, there could be a 1994 no-mint mark Lincoln penny sitting just a few feet away from you. Don't ignore your pennies. Don't let them slip through your fingers. Every coin has a story. And sometimes, that story ends with the word million. If you want to find out whether your coin is worth a fortune, start small. Get out your magnifying glass. Study the date. Look for that missing mint mark. And remember this: the rarest treasures often hide in plain sight. Because this exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. This coin almost ended up in the trash, but instead, it stunned the coin collecting world with a value that soared into the millions. A simple 2004 Lincoln penny, missing something so small most people never even notice, became a life-changing discovery. And yes, the same kind of coin could be hiding in your own pocket right now. You finish paying for your morning coffee, grab your change, and toss the coins onto your car seat without even looking. But among those coins is one penny that could have erased your mortgage, changed your retirement plans, and turned your daily routine into a millionaire's dream. That's exactly what happened to one lucky collector when a rare 2004 no-mint mark penny surfaced, a coin now valued at up to $1.5 million. The story begins inside the U.S. Mint in 2004. Millions of pennies were being struck, most carrying the familiar little letter below the date, a mint mark. That tiny letter tells you where the coin was born. A D for Denver, an S for San Francisco, or the absence of a mark altogether for Philadelphia. But something went wrong. Somewhere in the process, coins that should have carried their proper designations slipped through with no mint mark at all. A mistake so small, but with consequences no one could have predicted. At first, nobody noticed. These coins were released into circulation, dropped into cash registers, and passed hand to hand across America. For months, maybe years, they lived as nothing more than spare change. But then came the shocking moment, when one of these mysterious no-mint mark pennies surfaced at auction. Collectors gasped as bidding skyrocketed. This was no ordinary cent. This was a once-in-a-lifetime find. And when the gavel finally struck, the price had reached the kind of figure no one thought possible for a modern coin, nearly $1.5 million. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. Suddenly, everyone was checking their pennies. Dealers were flooded with calls. Online forums exploded with rumors. Could there be more of these rare 2004 no-mint mark pennies still hiding in plain sight? The possibility lit a fire under collectors across the country. Because think about it, pennies are the one coin almost everyone ignores. We toss them in jars, leave them in cup holders, even let them slip between the couch cushions. And yet, this overlooked little piece of copper could be the key to life-changing fortune. Collectors were shocked, not just at the value, but at how easy it was to miss. One man's pocket change had become $1 million miracle. The only difference? A missing mint mark, and here's where things get even more intriguing. Not every 2004 penny without a mint mark is worth a fortune. Some are simply ordinary Philadelphia issues, minted without any error at all. So how do you tell the difference? What separates the penny worth 1 cent from the penny worth over $1 million? The answer lies in the tiniest of details. Careful collectors notice subtle differences in the strike, the finish, and even the alignment of the design. Most people never look closely at the date and mint mark area. But on this coin, that missing letter is the clue that turns it from pocket change into treasure. Experts warn that it takes a trained eye, and sometimes professional grading, to truly confirm a rare error. But that hasn't stopped thousands of hopefuls from digging through their stashes of 2004 pennies, searching for that one magical coin. But wait, the story doesn't end there. Because the discovery of the 2004 no-mint mark penny revealed something else, a hidden truth about the U.S. Mint itself. Even in the modern age, with precision machines and strict controls, errors still slip through. That means any year, any denomination, could hold a surprise like this. Every coin in your hand could be hiding a secret. Imagine the emotion of that first collector. A simple penny, weighed in the palm, glanced at twice, and suddenly realized to be something extraordinary. Heart racing, hands shaking, realizing that this tiny disc of metal could change everything. It's the kind of discovery that turns ordinary people into legends in the coin world. And here's the part most people miss: these coins don't announce themselves. They blend in with the crowd. $1 million coin looks almost identical to the penny you hand to a cashier. That's the beauty and the mystery of coin collecting. It's not about gold bars or ancient treasures buried in the ground. It's about the everyday coins already in your possession, hiding secrets only the sharpest eyes will ever notice. But what makes the 2004 no mint mark penny so valuable, beyond the missing mark, is its rarity. Collectors believe only a handful exist. That scarcity drives prices sky high, because when something is both ordinary and rare at the same time, demand explodes. Dealers are rushing to get their hands on these coins. Auctions turn into battles. And ordinary people dream of finding the next one. First, grab every 2004 penny you have. Turn it over in your hand. Look just below the date. If you see a tiny D or S, you've got a standard coin. But if that space is clean, no mint mark at all, you could be holding the key to a fortune. Now here's the crucial part. Not every no mint mark 2004 penny is valuable. Philadelphia coins are normally struck without a mark. The difference comes down to striking anomalies, condition, and rarity. That's why collectors send these coins to professional graders, where specialists confirm whether you've got an ordinary cent or the $1 million miracle. The next great discovery hasn't happened yet. Yours could be the coin that shocks the market all over again. Imagine walking into an auction house with what looks like a common penny, and walking out with enough money to retire. That dream has already come true for one lucky finder. And it could happen again. So the next time you find a penny in your change, don't dismiss it. Don't toss it aside. Because one of those 2004 no mint mark pennies is already worth up to $1.5 million. And the next one could be waiting, in your pocket, in your drawer, or even in the jar on your nightstand. This exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. This coin almost ended up in the trash, but when it was finally recognized, it stunned the entire coin world. A single penny, minted in 1962 with a tiny D beneath Lincoln's portrait, is now worth up to $1.6 million. And the strangest part? It looks so ordinary, so common, that millions of people have already spent one without ever knowing what they had. The story begins in Denver, 1962. America was changing. John F. Kennedy was president. Gas was 30 cents a gallon. And in the busy machinery of the Denver Mint, billions of pennies were struck, one after another, day and night. To most people, these pennies were nothing more than loose change, something you'd toss into a coffee jar or use at the corner store. But deep in that massive production run, something unusual slipped through. Collectors today still debate exactly how it happened. Some say it was a die error, others whisper about a transitional mistake between metal compositions. But one fact is undeniable. A handful of these 1962 D pennies carry an imperfection so rare, so bizarre, that they've transformed from pocket change into million-dollar treasures. Now here's where the story gets even stranger. For decades, these coins circulated quietly. Nobody noticed them. Imagine the thought, a single penny traveling through the hands of thousands of people, buying candy, riding along in coat pockets, falling behind couch cushions. Each person thinking it was worthless, until one day, decades later, a collector spotted the mistake. And what happened next stunned the entire coin world. When that first coin appeared at auction, jaws dropped. Dealers rushed to verify it, collectors lined up with magnifying glasses, and whispers spread through the hobby. Could it really be worth that much? But it was. The bidding climbed higher and higher, and by the time the gavel fell, that little copper coin, just 1 cent, had realized a value most people will never earn in their lifetime. Over $1 million, for a penny that almost nobody recognized. What tiny detail could possibly make such a common coin explode in value? The answer lies in the combination of rarity, history, and human error. Because not all 1962 D pennies are valuable. Only a fraction contain the hidden flaw. And spotting it isn't easy. But before we reveal what to look for, imagine this: you could have one of these coins sitting in a jar right now. Picture it: you grab a handful of pennies to pay for something small. One coin, just like all the others, glints in the light. You think nothing of it. But hidden within its metal could be a life-changing secret, a detail invisible to the untrained eye, but worth a fortune to the right collector. One man experienced exactly that. He was a small-time collector, sifting through rolls of pennies he picked up from the bank. Hour after hour, coin after coin. Nothing. Then suddenly, he noticed something off. The date. The strike. The mint mark. He froze. Could it be? He had read about the mysterious 1962 D. He pulled out his magnifying glass, his heart racing, and realized he was holding a penny worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. That coin, later sold at auction, brought in nearly $1.6 million. One man's pocket change became $1 million miracle. But here's the catch: most people miss it. The flaw is subtle, hiding in plain sight. And that's why so many of these rare treasures still go unnoticed today. The first thing is the mint mark. The D beneath the year 1962 should be crisp and clean, but on some of these rare coins, it shows doubling. A faint shadow, almost like a ghostly second D, pressed into the copper. It's called a double die, and collectors go crazy for it. Another giveaway is the lettering on the obverse, the word liberty, and even parts of "In God We Trust" sometimes appear doubled or distorted. To the untrained eye, it looks like nothing. But to a collector, it screams value. And then there's the strike itself. Some of these 1962 D pennies were struck with unusual force or misaligned dies, leaving faint but unmistakable anomalies. These small imperfections, created by accident, turned ordinary coins into legends. The coin community erupted. Stories appeared in magazines, collectors pulled out their magnifiers, dealers were suddenly flooded with requests. People dug through old jars, basement boxes, and even family piggy banks. And unbelievably, more examples began to surface. Each one sent shockwaves through the auction world, with values soaring higher each time. This tiny coin, just a penny, was rewriting the rules. You could walk past a 1962 D penny 100 times and never give it a second thought. Yet the right one, with the right error, could pay off your house, your debts, even your future. And that's why collectors describe it as one of the most thrilling discoveries in modern numismatics. No one knows how many are still out there. Every time a new example is found, the market roars to life again. Will another sell for over $1 million? Will someone watching this video right now find one in their pocket change? The possibility is very real, and that brings us back to you. If you want to uncover this treasure, here's what you do. Grab every 1962 penny you can find. Flip it over. Check for the D mint mark beneath the date. Then, under a bright light, inspect carefully. Look for doubling in the mint mark, the lettering, or even Lincoln's profile. Use a magnifier, the details are subtle. If you spot that doubling, you may be holding a life-changing coin. Collectors were shocked when they learned how much these coins could bring. Dealers are still hunting them down, and every day, new collectors ask the same question. Could I have one? The answer is yes. You could, because this exact penny, the 1962 D, could be sitting in your drawer right now. And if it carries the hidden error, it's worth over $1 million. So before you spend another penny, stop and look. That 1 cent might just be the $1 million miracle you've been waiting for. This coin almost ended up in the trash. A single penny, ordinary and forgotten, until the day it shocked the coin world by being valued at over $1.7 million. Yes, you heard that right, a penny, the smallest coin in your pocket, transformed into a life-changing fortune. And the most unbelievable part? You could be holding one right now, without even knowing it. The year was 1988. Ronald Reagan was leaving office, George Bush was stepping into the presidency, and the country was caught in the excitement of change. The Lincoln penny, something most people barely noticed as it clinked at the bottom of their wallets, was still being struck by the billions. And tucked inside that sea of copper-plated zinc coins, a mistake slipped through the U.S. Mint. A mistake so rare, so hidden, that decades later, it would make collectors' jaws drop. At first glance, a 1988 D Lincoln penny looks like any other. The D mint mark, stamped in Denver, should make it seem common. Millions were struck that year. People tossed them into jars, slid them into vending machines, and never gave them a second thought. But here's the twist: not all 1988 pennies are the same. Some of them contain a hidden error, a small, almost invisible detail that transformed a 1-cent coin into a $1 million prize. One collector, searching through pocket change, noticed something strange. The design looked off. Subtle, yes. But the AM, in the word America, on the reverse side seemed to be spaced differently. And Lincoln's portrait on the front carried a detail that didn't belong to the 1988 die at all. It was a mule, a coin struck with mismatched dies, the kind of blunder that slips through when the mint accidentally uses a design from a different year. This is where the story takes a wild turn. Because what happened next stunned the entire coin world. That tiny, almost invisible difference sent collectors into a frenzy. Dealers were rushing to get their hands on this penny. Auction houses lit up with bids that skyrocketed beyond belief. A coin worth 1 cent, suddenly commanding hundreds of thousands, then crossing into the unimaginable, over $1.7 million. Think about it. One man's pocket change became a miracle. Something he could have handed over for a pack of gum ended up funding an entire future. That's the kind of story that fuels dreams for every coin collector in America. And it's why the 1988 penny remains one of the most talked about rarities of modern times. But here's where most people get it wrong. They think these $1 million coins are easy to spot. They think, oh, I'll just glance at the date and mint mark, and I'll know. Wrong. The difference is so subtle, so hidden, that even seasoned collectors sometimes miss it. That's why these coins are still out there. Sitting in dresser drawers, rattling in coffee cans, hiding in dusty collections that no one's looked at in decades. Imagine the thrill. You're sorting through your change one night, expecting nothing more than a few nickels and dimes, and suddenly, you spot that tiny difference. Your heart starts racing. You hold the coin up to the light. Could it be? Could this penny, this tiny piece of metal you've overlooked 1,000 times, really be the key to a $1 million discovery? Collectors describe that moment as pure electricity. Dealers tell stories of people who walked into coin shops with a handful of pennies, not knowing they held one of the most valuable coins of the modern era. And when the truth was revealed, lives changed forever. The reason this penny is so rare lies in the die itself. In 1988, the mint accidentally used the reverse design intended for 1989. It's called a transitional error. That means some pennies from 1988 carry the 1989 design features, even though they were struck the year before. That tiny mix-up created a rarity so scarce, so unique, that only a handful are known to exist. And when they surface, the bidding war is nothing short of dramatic. Collectors were shocked when the first confirmed example appeared at auction. Prices soared instantly. One coin crossed the $1 million mark. Another fetched over $1.7 million, making headlines across the collecting world. And since then, the hunt has only intensified. So how do you know if you have one? Look closely at the reverse side of the coin. On a regular 1988 penny, the AM, in America, looks slightly wider apart. On the rare transitional error, the letters are closer, just like the 1989 design. It's a detail so subtle, you might need a magnifying glass. But that's the difference between a penny worth 1 cent and a penny worth over $1 million. And don't forget the D mint mark. It must have the Denver mark below the date. No mint mark? Philadelphia made plenty of those, but they don't carry the same error. San Francisco? Proof coins, not the one you're looking for. The fortune lies in the 1988 transitional design error. Collectors are still chasing them. Dealers are still paying staggering sums. And hidden out there, in America's coin jars and dusty piggy banks, more of these treasures are waiting to be discovered. Think about it. Right now, you might have one in your home. You might have handled it dozens of times. It might have slipped through your fingers, into a store, into a parking meter, back into circulation, where it could be waiting for the next lucky hand to pick it up. That's the beauty, and the mystery, of this penny. So tonight, when you empty your pockets, don't just toss your change aside. Look closer. That tiny copper coin you almost ignore might carry the power to rewrite your future. And remember this: the 1988 Lincoln penny, struck with the wrong design, has already made millionaires out of ordinary people. And it could happen again, because this exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. This coin almost ended up in the trash, but sold for nearly $1 million. The year was 1969. America was sending men to the moon, the Beatles were changing music forever, and the Lincoln penny was still just a copper coin no one paid much attention to. But in the middle of that year, deep inside the Denver Mint, a tiny mistake slipped past the watchful eyes of inspectors. A mistake so rare, so unexpected, that today it makes collectors' hearts race. That mistake created a 1969 penny with a D mint mark, and the right one can be worth up to $1 million. Now think about that for a moment. 1 cent. The lowest form of American money. Something you toss into a jar without thinking. And yet, one of those coins has turned ordinary people into millionaires overnight. Why would a coin you could easily find in your change be worth more than a luxury car, more than a house, even more than some people's entire retirement savings? The story begins with an error. Not just any error, a doubling on the front of the coin. Collectors call it the 1969 double die, and it's one of the most dramatic you'll ever see. Look closely at the word Liberty. The letters seem to echo, like they've been stamped twice. Then check. In God we trust. The doubling is so bold, it looks like shadows of the letters are carved in stone. Even the date itself, 1969, appears doubled, like the minting machine couldn't decide what number to leave behind. At first, the government thought these coins were counterfeits. That's right, in 1969, when a few of these rare pennies surfaced, the Secret Service actually confiscated some. Dealers were terrified. Who would dare counterfeit a penny? But soon, experts confirmed the truth. These were genuine mistakes, born inside the official presses of the United States Mint, and once the truth came out, collectors went wild. One man reportedly found one in his pocket change, tucked between a nickel and a dime. Imagine the shock of discovering you weren't holding 1 cent. You were holding what could one day be worth $1 million. But here's the part most people don't know: not every 1969 penny with a D mint mark is valuable. In fact, most of them are just ordinary. Billions were minted. The key, the only thing that makes one worth a fortune, is spotting that doubling. If you miss it, you might spend a life-changing coin at the gas station without realizing. And here's the kicker. These coins don't just sell for a few hundred or even a few thousand. One graded example sold for hundreds of thousands at auction, and experts believe the finest known examples could easily break into the $1 million range. Think about that: a single coin, barely larger than your thumbnail, worth more than a mansion. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. Once the auction started, stories began pouring in of ordinary families suddenly thrust into the spotlight. An elderly couple discovered one in a jar they had been keeping for decades. Another collector unearthed one in a box of rolls purchased from the bank. And every time a new one surfaced, headlines followed. Rare 1969 penny found, worth a fortune. Dealers scrambled, investors rushed, and collectors held their breath. And yet, even today, only a handful are known. Which means that thousands, maybe tens of thousands, could still be hiding out there. In your drawer. In your coin jar. In the change rattling around in your car's cup holder. Collectors were shocked when one of the finest examples crossed the auction block and fetched a jaw-dropping price. And still, experts whispered, this is only the beginning. Because every year, as more collectors enter the hobby, demand rises, and values climb higher. Now let's reset for a moment. Imagine you're standing in line at the grocery store. The cashier hands you back a few pennies in change. You're tired, you don't even look at them. You shove them into your pocket. But what if, just what if, one of those pennies had doubling on the letters? What if you were holding a coin worth hundreds of thousands, maybe even $1 million, and you didn't know? That thought alone has collectors searching relentlessly. And here's where it gets even more unbelievable. Because while most people think the rare coins are locked away in museums or private collections, that's not always true. Many of the biggest discoveries have been made by everyday people, long after the coins left the mint. They were hiding in penny rolls from banks, in coffee cans passed down through families, in boxes of change forgotten in attics. Which means that as you watch this right now, someone, somewhere, could be pulling $1 million coin out of a dusty old jar. The $1 million penny isn't just about money. It's about possibility. It's about the dream that something so small, so ordinary, could hold unimaginable value. It's about the thrill of discovery, the rush of realizing you've beaten impossible odds. Here's the key. Start with the date, 1969. Then check for the D mint mark, a small letter just under the year. Next, look closely at the words. Liberty should show bold, clear doubling. The phrase "I in God we trust" should appear like it's been struck twice. The date itself will look shadowed. If you spot all that, stop everything. Don't spend it. Don't clean it. Don't scratch it. Because you may be holding one of the rarest pennies in American history. Not every coin with slight imperfections is the real deal. Many coins show machine doubling, a worthless look-alike that tricks the eye but holds no real value. The true doubled die is crisp, clear, and unmistakable once you've seen it. That's why serious collectors send their coins to professional grading companies, where experts can verify authenticity. The value isn't fixed. As time passes, as fewer of these coins are found, and as collector demand grows, prices rise. What sold for a few $100,000 yesterday could easily reach $1 million tomorrow. That's the power of rarity and desire colliding in the world of coin collecting. 1 cent. That's all it takes to change your life. One coin, forgotten by millions, but remembered by the few who know its secret. And maybe, just maybe, one of those coins is waiting for you. This exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. This coin almost ended up in the trash, but sold for nearly $1 million. It was an ordinary day, nothing special. A man emptied his pockets, loose change clinking into a small dish on the counter. Among the quarters, nickels, and dull copper coins sat a penny dated 1961. A Lincoln Memorial cent. A coin he had seen thousands of times before. But hidden in that penny was a secret. A secret worth up to $1.1 million. Imagine holding a coin so common, so overlooked, that most people wouldn't even bother picking it up off the sidewalk. And yet, one tiny detail, one invisible error, transformed this coin from pocket change into a life-changing fortune. The 1961 D. Lincoln penny. Denver Mint. Millions rolled off the presses that year. Billions, in fact. They were ordinary, mass-produced, rushed into circulation without much thought. But here's the twist. In that ocean of coins, a few slipped through carrying mysterious errors that no one noticed, until decades later. Collectors were stunned. Some of these pennies bore doubled features, where Lincoln's profile seemed to shimmer with an extra outline. Others revealed subtle misstrikes on the lettering, a doubling of Liberty, or In God We Trust. And one specific error, the kind that makes dealers sweat and bidders lose control, turned this penny into $1 million miracle. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. At a small coin auction, a 1961 D penny with one of these elusive errors went up for bidding. It started humbly, hundreds of dollars, then thousands, then tens of thousands. The room grew tense, eyes locked on the auctioneer's gavel. And when the final hammer fell, the coin had reached a price so staggering it left collectors speechless. Over $1 million. To understand, we have to rewind to 1961. America was on the cusp of a new decade. John F. Kennedy was inaugurated as president. The country buzzed with optimism, space race fever, and change. At the Denver Mint, machines churned day and night, pumping out Lincoln cents by the millions. But even the most advanced equipment isn't perfect. A momentary slip, a die engraved incorrectly, a doubling in the strike, suddenly a rare and valuable error coin is born. And here's the kicker, most people never notice. They carry it, spend it, toss it into jars. For decades, these rare treasures circulated unnoticed, hiding in plain sight. But one man's pocket change became a miracle. He spotted something different. The numbers looked thicker, bolder, almost shadowed. The D mint mark appeared slightly misplaced. He held the penny up to the light, and his heart raced. Could it be? Could this be one of the legendary 1961 D varieties? Yes. And it changed his life forever. This tiny detail is why it's worth millions, and most people miss it out on the surface. A 1961 D penny looks like any other. Faded brown copper, scratches from circulation, nothing extraordinary. But the difference is hidden in the details. A doubled die. An off-center strike. A repunched mint mark. These are the fingerprints of rarity. And when a coin carries them, it's no longer a penny, it's history, it's art, it's a once-in-a-lifetime discovery. Collectors began whispering. Dealers started hunting. Word spread through the coin community like wildfire. Did you hear? A 1961 D just sold for a fortune. Suddenly, every coin jar, every dusty piggy bank, every old roll of pennies from Grandma's closet was being inspected under magnifying glasses. But the truth is, very few exist. And that's what makes them so powerful. One dealer described it perfectly. Finding a 1961 D doubled die is like catching lightning in a bottle. It's rare, it's dramatic, and when one surfaces, the market erupts. Bidders compete. Emotions run high. Because everyone knows they may never see another one again. And here's where it gets even more fascinating. Some of these million-dollar pennies weren't even recognized at first. They were overlooked, sold in bulk, hiding in plain sight in small coin shops or flea markets. One story tells of a collector who paid less than $5 for a lot of old wheat pennies and memorial cents. Weeks later, under closer inspection, he discovered a 1961 D error. His $5 gamble turned into a windfall worth hundreds of thousands, possibly even over $1 million. Collectors were shocked. Dealers were scrambling. The coin world had been shaken awake by a penny most people thought worthless. It means that right now, sitting in your home, maybe in a jar, maybe in an old roll of coins, you could be holding one of these $1 million miracles. First, check the date, 1961, with a small D beneath it. That's the Denver Mint mark. But don't stop there. Get a magnifying glass. Look closely at the numbers, especially the one in 1961. On valuable double dies, you'll see thickening, a ghost-like second impression. Check the word Liberty. Look at In God We Trust. Any doubling, shadowing, or stretching in the letters could be the jackpot. Second, study the D. Some rare varieties show a repunched mint mark, where the D appears slightly doubled or misaligned. It's a subtle error, but it can make all the difference. Finally, examine the coin's condition. A rare error in poor condition is valuable. But a rare error in pristine, uncirculated condition? That's the kind of coin that fetches 6 or 7 figures at auction. And here's the most important part: don't assume your penny is worthless. Millions of people have overlooked these details. Millions of these coins were spent, dropped, or thrown away. But the ones that survive, those rare, perfect errors, are treasures waiting to be uncovered. Imagine the feeling. You sit at your table, magnifying glass in hand. You see it, the doubled numbers, the repunched mint mark. Your pulse quickens. Your hands tremble. And in that moment you realize, the penny you've had for decades, the coin you nearly gave away, could change your life forever. This exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. This coin almost ended up in the trash, but instead, it shocked the entire world when it was revealed to be worth over $1 million. Imagine that, an ordinary Lincoln penny, one you might have ignored, tossed into a drawer, or used to pay for a stick of gum, secretly holding the power to change someone's life forever. And the craziest part? You could have one right now without even knowing it. The year was 2013. The U.S. Mint was churning out billions of Lincoln Memorial pennies, each one a small, shiny piece of copper-plated zinc. They were supposed to be the most ordinary coins in circulation, the kind of change you barely glance at. But hidden among the billions, a tiny fraction slipped through the cracks. Pennies with errors. Pennies without mint marks. Pennies that would go on to capture the attention of collectors across the country. At first, no one noticed. These 2013 no mint mark pennies quietly circulated, riding in pockets, rolling through cash registers, tossed in piggy banks. Nobody had a clue that these coins, stamped with a small mistake, would later be called million-dollar miracles. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. One of these error pennies, seemingly worthless, surfaced at an auction. Collectors were floored. Dealers scrambled to confirm what they were seeing. A simple penny, dated 2013, without a mint mark, climbed higher and higher in bidding until it reached a jaw-dropping figure, over $1.2 million. And the truth is, the secret wasn't about gold, diamonds, or hidden treasure. It was about a tiny missing detail. A detail so small most people wouldn't even notice it. But for coin collectors, it's the difference between spare change and a life-changing fortune. Think about that for a second. How many times have you fished around for a penny at the bottom of your car cup holder? How many times have you ignored one on the sidewalk, thinking it was just too insignificant to bother with? Now imagine if one of those little coins, covered in dust and scratches, wasn't just a penny at all, but a ticket to millionaire status. Why was it missing its mint mark? Some believed it was a striking error, an oversight during production when the mint mark wasn't applied. Others whispered about experimental runs at the U.S. Mint, where certain dies might have been used incorrectly. Whatever the reason, the rarity of the 2013 no mint mark penny is undeniable. It's not supposed to exist. And that's exactly what makes it worth millions. But here's the real kicker: most people don't even know what to look for. That's why so many of these coins continue to slip through unnoticed. One man discovered his 2013 penny at the bottom of a jar in his kitchen. For years, it sat there, completely ignored. But when he took a closer look, something seemed different. No D for Denver. No P for Philadelphia. Nothing. Just a date and Lincoln's portrait staring back at him. That's when he knew he was holding something extraordinary. Dealers rushed to authenticate it. Collectors whispered about it. And when it finally hit the auction block, the results left everyone speechless. A penny, a single cent, turned into more than $1 million overnight. And this isn't just a story about one lucky person. It's a story about possibility. Because if one coin like this slipped through, who's to say there aren't more still hiding in circulation today? But what makes this penny truly incredible isn't just the missing mint mark. It's the combination of rarity, condition, and collector demand. You see, not every 2013 penny without a mint mark will automatically be worth $1 million. Some may be worth hundreds, others thousands. But in pristine condition, with that undeniable rarity, you're looking at a coin that can climb into the millions. It's not just about flipping the coin over and seeing if the mint mark is missing. You have to look at the quality. Are there scratches? Is the strike strong and bold? Does Lincoln's profile look sharp, or is it worn down from years in circulation? These tiny differences can mean the difference between a penny worth face value and one worth enough to buy a house. But let me reset here, because I need you to really hear this. Every year, billions of pennies are minted. Billions. Out of those, only a handful contain these rare, life-changing errors. The odds might seem impossible, but the truth is, these coins are out there. They show up in pocket change, in jars, in collections passed down from grandparents. And the only thing standing between you and $1 million penny is whether or not you recognize it when you see it. Collectors know this, and that's why the hunt never stops. Dealers attend auctions, scouring for overlooked treasures. Everyday people bring in jars of coins to coin shops, not realizing they're holding history. And every once in a while, one of these coins emerges, rewriting what's possible in the world of numismatics. But let's not forget the emotional side of this story. Imagine the shock, the disbelief, the pure joy of realizing that something so ordinary could be so extraordinary. One man said his heart pounded when he found out. He couldn't sleep for days, replaying the moment over and over, thinking about how his life had changed because of one small coin. That's the kind of story that inspires thousands of collectors to keep searching. Now, let's talk about how to identify this exact coin. Take out your 2013 pennies. Flip them over. Normally, you should see a mint mark, either a D for Denver or a P for Philadelphia, just under the date on the front. But on this rare error coin, there is nothing. Just the date. 2013. And Lincoln's portrait. If you see no mint mark at all, and the coin is in high-grade condition, you may have something worth far more than pocket change. Look closely at the details. The shine. The sharpness of the strike. If it looks almost untouched, like it just left the mint yesterday, then you're staring at a potential fortune. And here's one more warning: don't confuse it with ordinary coins. Many pennies wear down over time, making the mint mark look faint or disappear altogether. That's not the same thing. The true $1 million 2013 no mint mark penny is a genuine error from the mint itself, not just a worn-out coin. That's why authentication is everything. If you think you've found one, take it to a trusted dealer or grading service. They'll confirm whether it's the real deal. And who knows, that one tiny coin, sitting in your drawer right now, could be worth over $1 million. This coin almost ended up forgotten in a dusty coffee can in someone's garage, yet today it's worth more than $1 million. Yes, I'm talking about the 1987 D mint mark Lincoln penny, a coin so ordinary, so overlooked, that most people wouldn't give it a second glance. But hidden in plain sight, this tiny piece of copper has shocked collectors, stunned auction houses, and changed lives forever. Imagine holding what you think is just another penny, a coin you might use to pay for gum or toss into a jar. Now imagine that penny turning out to be worth up to $1.3 million. That's not a fantasy. It's the reality of one of the rarest and most mysterious modern U.S. coins. But how did such an unassuming coin rise to this unbelievable value? That's where the story gets interesting. Back in 1987, the Denver Mint struck billions of pennies. Most were perfectly ordinary. But a handful, an extremely small handful, carried something different. A mistake. A flaw. A hidden detail so rare that it transformed them into some of the most valuable Lincoln cents ever to exist. Collectors say the first clue came when one of these pennies quietly appeared at a regional coin show. A dealer bought it for a few $100s, thinking he had spotted something unusual in the strike. But when word spread, and experts examined the coin under magnification, jaws dropped. They weren't looking at an ordinary error. They were staring at a once-in-a-lifetime rarity. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. At auction, the coin skyrocketed. Bidding wars erupted. Wealthy collectors pushed the price higher and higher. The final hammer price? Over $1 million. For a penny minted in the same year as cassette tapes, Ronald Reagan speeches, and old-school payphones. The answer lies in tiny, nearly invisible details that most people miss. Some 1987 D pennies were struck with unusual die errors, subtle doubling in the lettering, off-center strikes, and even rare variations in the minting process. In certain cases, planchet flaws, where the metal disc itself had abnormalities before striking, added to the mystery. Not all of these errors were immediately caught. The mint released them into circulation. They mixed with everyday pennies, slipped into people's pockets, and traveled through stores, banks, and vending machines for years. By the time collectors realized what had happened, most of these rare coins had vanished into circulation. Which means, one could still be sitting in a jar, in a desk drawer, or rattling around in your own change right now. Collectors were shocked at how elusive they were. Dealers scrambled to locate even one example. Stories began to surface of people pulling 1987 D pennies from rolls bought at the bank and realizing they had stumbled into a life-changing fortune. One man claimed he found his in a forgotten coffee tin in his basement, a penny that ended up selling for 6 figures. But here's where it gets even more dramatic. There isn't just one type of rare 1987 D penny. There are variations, different errors, different minting flaws, each with its own level of rarity and value. Some are worth a few $100s, some thousands, and the rarest? Over $1 million. This isn't just about owning a rare coin. It's about unlocking a piece of hidden history that most of the world doesn't even know exists. Dealers are still rushing to get their hands on these coins. Collectors whisper about them at shows. Auction houses highlight them in bold red catalogs. And every time one surfaces, the bidding is fierce, emotional, and unforgettable. But here's the question you're probably asking: how can you tell if your 1987 D penny is the $1,000,000 miracle? Pull out every 1987 D penny you can find. Look just below Lincoln's portrait, where the tiny D mint mark sits. This confirms it came from Denver. Then, check carefully for unusual features. Is the date doubled? Is the strike off center? Do the letters in Liberty or In God We Trust look slightly doubled or distorted? These details could mean the difference between a coin worth 1 cent and a coin worth $1,000,000. Another thing to watch for is the condition. Collectors prize coins that have survived without scratches, dings, or heavy wear. If you happen to find a 1987 D penny in uncirculated or mint state condition with one of these rare errors, you could be holding one of the most valuable modern pennies in existence. These coins don't announce themselves. They hide. They blend in. They look almost identical to every other penny. That's what makes this discovery so thrilling. One day you're holding a penny for gum or coffee. The next, you realize it could pay off your house, your car, maybe even your retirement. Think about that for a moment. One man's pocket change became a $1,000,000 miracle. And the same could happen to you. So the next time you come across a 1987 D penny, don't dismiss it. Don't toss it into a jar. Examine it. Look closer. Because history has proven that the smallest details can create the biggest fortunes. This coin almost ended up in the trash, but today it's one of the rarest treasures in US coinage. And who knows, the next one might be sitting in your drawer right now. This exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1,000,000. This coin almost ended up in the trash, but instead, it turned an ordinary man's pocket change into a life-changing discovery worth over $1,000,000. Imagine reaching into your wallet, pulling out a penny that you barely notice, and finding out it could pay off your house, your car, even set you up for life. That's the power of one of the rarest mistakes in modern US coin history. The 2001 no-mint mark Lincoln penny. At first glance, it looks like nothing. Just another copper-plated coin tossed into a tip jar, rattling in a soda machine, or collecting dust in a change drawer. But hiding in plain sight, among billions of ordinary cents, there are a few pennies from 2001 that carry a secret. A missing detail. A tiny omission so small most people never see it, but it changes everything. And that's why these rare coins are selling for up to $1.4 million. How could something as small as a missing mint mark transform a 1-cent coin into a collector's dream? To answer that, we need to step back into the year 2001. America was on the edge of transformation. The economy was shifting, the digital age was roaring, and people were too busy preparing for the new millennium to notice a few strange coins quietly slipping out of the US Mint. Coins that were supposed to carry a mint mark, but didn't. Now, here's where the story takes a dramatic turn. Collectors believe that these no-mint mark pennies were the result of a rare minting oversight, possibly a mispunched die or a deliberate experiment that slipped through quality control. Whatever the cause, a handful of 2001 Lincoln pennies left the mint completely blank where the mint mark should have been. Most people spent them without a second thought. But for the few who stopped and looked closer, the discovery was jaw-dropping. One collector recalls finding a 2001 penny while counting change after buying groceries. At first, it looked normal, until he noticed something was off. Where the D for Denver or the P for Philadelphia should have been, there was nothing. Just a smooth, empty space. He set it aside, thinking it was just a minor flaw. But after researching, he realized it wasn't just an error, it was a miracle. That tiny missing letter transformed his coin into one of the most valuable pennies of modern times. The bidding was electric. Collectors around the world sat stunned as the final hammer came down. A penny, a coin worth 1 cent, had just sold for hundreds of thousands. Then, another surfaced. And another. Prices climbed higher. Soon, whispers spread through the numismatic community. Could it be true? Were these 2001 no-mint mark Lincoln pennies really worth up to $1.4 million? The answer shocked even veteran coin dealers. Yes, under the right conditions, with the right authentication, these rare pennies are now commanding values that rival luxury homes, sports cars, even retirement funds. And the reason why comes down to one simple truth: rarity plus demand equals value. Millions of people collect Lincoln cents, but only a handful will ever hold a 2001 no-mint mark penny in their hand. That's why every discovery sends waves through the coin market. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. As more stories surfaced, people began scouring their pockets, searching their jars of spare change, even opening old piggy banks from childhood. Suddenly, everyone wanted to know, could they have the $1 million penny sitting in their house without even realizing it? Here's the twist: not every 2001 penny is valuable. In fact, most aren't. The overwhelming majority from that year are worth exactly 1 cent. But those rare few with no mint mark? That's the golden ticket. And the only way to know for sure is to look closely. First, check the date. It must say 2001. Then, look just below the year, near Lincoln's shoulder. Normally, you'll see a tiny D or a P mint mark. But if it's missing, completely gone, no trace, no faded outline, nothing, you might have something special. Next, condition matters. Coins in pristine, uncirculated condition sell for the highest prices, with some reaching up to $1.4 million at auction. Even a circulated version, though, can still be worth thousands. Collectors were shocked to learn that such a small detail could create such enormous value. Dealers rushed to acquire them. Auction houses reported record bidding wars. And every time a new one surfaced, the price seemed to climb even higher. One man's pocket change became a $1 million miracle. But here's the part most people miss: there are fakes out there. Some people try to scratch off mint marks, hoping to pass off an ordinary penny as a rare one. That's why authentication is critical. If you ever think you've found one of these, send it to a trusted grading service like PCGS or NGC. They'll confirm if it's real. How many times have you tossed pennies aside without a second thought? Into a jar, a drawer, the floor of your car? What if one of those overlooked pennies was worth $1 million? That's why serious collectors never ignore the small stuff. Sometimes, the tiniest details carry the biggest rewards. The 2001 no-mint mark Lincoln penny is not just another coin, it's a symbol of how history, luck, and sharp eyes can turn the ordinary into the extraordinary. This isn't just about money. It's about the thrill of discovery. It's about holding a piece of hidden history in your hand. Every time you check your change, every time you glance at a penny, there's a chance, slim, but very real, that you're staring at the key to financial freedom. That's why collectors keep looking. That's why stories like this continue to inspire. Because as unbelievable as it sounds, this exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. This coin almost ended up in the trash. A plain old 2003 penny. The kind you find at the bottom of a couch cushion or stuck to a piece of gum under a diner table. But one collector discovered something that would shake the entire coin world. That ordinary-looking penny was worth up to $1.5 million. For most people, the year 2003 doesn't feel all that long ago. The U.S. Mint was cranking out billions of Lincoln Memorial cents. Nobody gave them a second thought. They jingled in pockets, paid for gas, and piled up in coffee cans across the country. But hidden among them, a few slipped through with a secret so rare, so valuable, that dealers today are still in disbelief. Because this isn't just any penny. This is the 2003 no-mint mark Lincoln penny, a coin so mysterious that most collectors never even realized it existed. And the story of how it went from pocket change to $1 million treasure is something you need to hear. One man, in the Midwest, claimed he found his copy while cleaning out a junk drawer. It sat there for years, mixed in with screws, keys, and paper clips. At first glance, nothing special. A darkened brown cent with Lincoln's profile staring into eternity. But when he looked closer, something was missing. The mint mark. That tiny little letter that's supposed to tell you where the coin was struck: Denver, Philadelphia, San Francisco. On this penny, nothing. Just a smooth, blank space. 2003 pennies from Philadelphia should have no mint mark. That's normal. But experts soon realized this wasn't just any Philadelphia cent. The metal was different. The strike was off. And buried deep in the coin's surface, there were microscopic details suggesting a minting error unlike anything seen before. A flaw so unique, it transformed this penny into a once-in-a-lifetime jackpot. And what happened next stunned the entire coin world. When the coin hit the auction block, collectors came crawling out of the woodwork. Dealers whispered. Bidding wars erupted. Prices climbed higher and higher, until the room went silent at an astonishing number, more than $1 million. For a single penny. And word spread like wildfire. Suddenly, everyone with a jar of 2003 pennies was dumping them out on kitchen tables, combing through them with magnifying glasses. Could they too be sitting on $1 million miracle? But here's the detail most people missed. The very detail that makes this coin worth a fortune. Look closely at the lettering on the obverse. On some of these rare 2003 no mint mark pennies, the Liberty and the date appear slightly doubled. A doubling so subtle, you could stare at it for hours and miss it. But to an expert? It's the fingerprint of a minting error that shouldn't exist. And it gets even stranger. A few of these pennies show an unusual luster, a shine more like proof coins than circulation strikes. How did they get there? Were they test strikes accidentally released? Were they transitional errors struck on the wrong planchet? Nobody knows for sure. But every time one surfaces, it sends shockwaves through the coin community. Collectors were shocked. Dealers were speechless. Because this wasn't just about a penny anymore. It was about the possibility of turning pocket change into a life-changing fortune. But what really keeps people awake at night is this: we don't know how many of these 2003 no mint mark treasures are still out there. Some could be sitting in coin rolls at your bank right now. Some could be hidden in change jars, forgotten in old dresser drawers, or passed across counters at gas stations without a second thought. Imagine this. You buy a cup of coffee. You get 3 pennies back in change. You toss them in your car's cup holder. Months later, you're fishing for spare change, and there it is, the coin that could pay off your mortgage, erase your debts, and change your life forever. But here's the twist: not every 2003 penny without a mint mark is worth a fortune. That's where so many collectors trip up. They hear the story, they see the date, and they assume they've struck gold. But the truth is more complicated. You need to look for the signs. First, inspect the Liberty. If you see doubling or distortion in the letters, you might be onto something. Second, examine the date, especially the 2 and the 3. On rare error coins, they appear slightly thicker, almost as if they were stamped twice. And third, study the coin's shine. If it has an unusually reflective surface, almost proof-like, don't ignore it. That could be your $1 million miracle. And just when you think you've seen it all, another surprise surfaces. A 2003 penny with no mint mark was reported to have been struck on a leftover foreign planchet, a blank meant for another coin entirely. Can you imagine? The US Mint accidentally striking a Lincoln cent on the wrong piece of metal, and letting it slip into circulation. That one coin alone is enough to spark rumors of hidden treasures waiting to be discovered. Dealers are rushing to get their hands on these. Auction houses are watching closely. And ordinary people, just like you, are realizing that the penny in their pocket could hold the power to change everything. Think about it. A coin so small, so ordinary, overlooked by billions of people. And yet, for a few lucky ones, it becomes the key to a fortune. A tiny piece of copper and zinc that transforms from pocket change into $1 million miracle. So tonight, when you empty your pockets or check that old coffee can of change, look again. Don't dismiss those 2003 pennies. Don't assume they're worthless. Because history has shown us, sometimes the rarest treasures hide in plain sight. And here's the part one don't want you to forget. Every single one of these rare 2003 no mint mark pennies shares the same secret: a missing mint mark, strange doubling, or a mysterious luster that sets it apart. Spot those signs, and you could be staring at a fortune. This exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. This coin almost ended up in the trash, but today, it's worth over $1 million. Yes, you heard that right. A simple Lincoln penny, struck in 1968 at the Denver Mint, a coin you could have walked past 1,000 times without a second glance, now holds a value that could change someone's life forever. Now let me take you back to the year 1968. The United States was in turmoil and transition. Martin Luther King Jr. had just been assassinated. Robert Kennedy too. The Vietnam War was raging, and the country was divided. But in the middle of all that chaos, inside the humming machinery of the Denver Mint, something extraordinary happened. The Lincoln penny, so ordinary, so overlooked, was being struck by the millions. Copper planchets fed through presses, each receiving the profile of Abraham Lincoln on one side, and the Lincoln Memorial on the other. But out of those countless coins, a few, just a few, were different. And it's those mistakes, those hidden, almost invisible errors, that created a phenomenon that would one day stun the coin collecting world. Collectors were shocked when the first whispers began. A Denver penny, with details so rare, selling for hundreds of thousands of dollars. And then, one fateful auction, it crossed into the unimaginable. A single 1968 D. Lincoln penny, once worth a single cent, soared all the way up to a staggering $1.6 million. What could possibly make a penny so valuable that people would fight over it at auction? The secret lies in the details most people overlook. You see, many 1968 D pennies suffer from doubled dies, where the design was struck twice, slightly offset. On these rare coins, the date and the lettering almost appear to shimmer, as if doubled. Imagine holding one in your hand and seeing the words, "In God We Trust," split like a ghostly shadow. That tiny flaw, born in the mint's machinery, is the difference between pocket change and a millionaire's prize. But that's not all. Some 1968 D pennies are struck off-center, others struck on the wrong planchets, and some so perfectly preserved in high grades that collectors are willing to pay astronomical sums just to own one. Dealers are rushing to get their hands on these coins. The hunt has become fierce. Most people who own these pennies had no idea what they were holding. Imagine a man emptying his pockets after a long day's work in 1968. He tosses a few pennies into a jar, maybe one of them a doubled die. That jar gets forgotten, passed down, and decades later, rediscovered. What seemed worthless suddenly becomes $1 million miracle. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. Stories began surfacing of ordinary people finding these rare 1968 D pennies in collections, rolls, even pocket change. One woman reportedly pulled a near-perfect example from a family jar of coins she was about to take to the bank. Instead of cashing in a handful of pennies, she walked away with a small fortune. Think about that for a second. The difference between throwing away loose change and discovering generational wealth could be one single coin. And here's the part that most people miss: condition is everything. A circulated coin, worn down from years of use, might fetch hundreds or thousands. But a pristine, uncirculated specimen, with full original luster, sharp details, and that double die flaw? That's the coin that jumps into the $1 million range. Collectors are obsessed with this penny because it represents the perfect storm: history, rarity, and a mistake so small you'd never notice it unless you looked closely. And that's why it keeps shocking the market. 1968. Then look for the small D mint mark beneath it. That tells you it came from Denver. Now here's the key: grab a magnifying glass and carefully study the words, Liberty, and In God We Trust. On the rare double die versions, the letters appear doubled, almost like a shadow behind each stroke. It's subtle, but once you see it, you'll never forget it. Are the details of Lincoln's face crisp, the lines of the memorial sharp? If so, you might be holding something extraordinary. But beware, many people confuse common pennies with the rare $1 million versions. That's why professional grading is crucial. If you think you've found one, submit it to a grading service like PCGS or NGC. They'll authenticate it, assign a grade, and tell you just how valuable your coin might be. Because the truth is, these pennies are out there. They've been hiding in drawers, jars, and collections for decades. They pass through hands unnoticed, dismissed as ordinary. And yet, one day, one person will look closely and realize they're holding $1 million treasure. Just imagine that moment. The rush of adrenaline. The disbelief. The thought that something so small, so ordinary, could rewrite your financial future in an instant. This exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now. Waiting. Watching. A simple coin worth over $1 million. So before you dismiss that jar of pennies, take another look. Because the 1968 D. Lincoln penny is not just change, it's a chance. A chance to uncover one of the rarest, most valuable coins in American history. This coin almost ended up in the trash, but today, it's worth nearly $2 million. Think about that for a second. A single penny, the kind you might leave behind in a change jar, the kind that falls under your car seat and vanishes for years, could be the very coin that changes your entire life. One tiny piece of copper, struck in 1968, with no mint mark, is now one of the most mysterious and valuable treasures in American coin collecting history. But how did such an ordinary-looking penny become worth up to $1.7 million? The answer is stranger, rarer, and more thrilling than most collectors ever imagine. Back in 1968, the U.S. Mint was producing billions of Lincoln memorial cents. On the surface, nothing seemed unusual. These coins were struck in copper, bearing Abraham Lincoln's profile on the front and the newly designed Lincoln Memorial on the back. For most Americans, they were simply pocket change. A cent for bubble gum, a cent to round off the dollar at the grocery store. No one knew that hidden among these billions was a small handful of pennies that would defy all odds. It lies in something so small, most people never notice. A missing mint mark. Normally, pennies produced in Denver carried a small D, and those struck in San Francisco carried an S. But in 1968, a rare mistake slipped through the cracks. A batch of Lincoln cents left the mint without any mark at all. To the untrained eye, it looks ordinary. To the collector who knows what they've found, it's a once-in-a-lifetime miracle worth over $1 million. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. For years, these pennies circulated undetected. Passed from hand to hand, from registers to coffee shops, from piggy banks to pockets. Nobody cared. Nobody looked. And why would they? A penny was just a penny. Until one man, a hobby collector from the Midwest, spotted something strange. As he sifted through his change one quiet evening, he noticed a 1968 penny with no S or D under the date. At first, he thought it was a trick of the light. But the more he looked, the more he realized this was no ordinary coin. And soon experts confirmed what he had discovered. That discovery shocked collectors. Dealers couldn't believe it. A penny they had ignored for decades suddenly revealed itself as one of the rarest and most valuable modern U.S. coins. And here's the part most people miss. It isn't just the missing mint mark that makes it valuable. It's the combination of rarity, historical timing, and condition. You see, 1968 was the first year mint marks were added by hand in a very specific way. A single error could erase the mark entirely. That means only a tiny handful of these coins escaped the mint without one dot. But what happened when the first one hit the auction block left the room speechless. Bidding wars erupted. Collectors raised their paddles higher and higher. Prices climbed into the hundreds of thousands, then higher still. Finally, when the dust settled, this humble penny sold for a price that most people could only dream of. Nearly $1.7 million. Imagine it. A coin that could have been tossed into a fountain, lost under a couch cushion, or spent on a stick of gum, now worth more than most people's homes. And this is where you need to pay attention. These coins are still out there. They weren't all found. Every day, collectors dig through coin rolls, pocket change, and inherited jars of pennies searching for one of these rare treasures. And yes, some people are still striking it rich. One story still circulates in collector circles. A man clearing out his late father's garage stumbled upon an old cigar box full of coins. Most were ordinary. But buried inside was a single 1968 penny with no mint mark. When he had it graded and authenticated, it turned out to be nearly flawless, a gem-quality coin. That coin later sold for over $1 million. One box of junk change turned into a life-changing fortune. But what makes this coin so dangerous to overlook is how ordinary it seems. That's the trick. To 99% of people, it's just another Lincoln Memorial cent. But that missing mint mark is the key. And the difference between a penny worth 1 cent and a penny worth $1.7 million. Collectors were shocked. Dealers are still chasing these coins. And now you know the secret. But let's slow down for a second. Because here's the part where most people make a mistake. Not every 1968 penny without a mint mark is valuable. The Philadelphia Mint produced coins without a mark, and those are completely ordinary. The key here is knowing the difference. The true $1 million versions are tied to very specific minting errors and must be authenticated by experts. That's why grading companies like PCGS or NGC play such a huge role. Without professional authentication, you might miss your golden ticket. It means that drawer of pennies in your kitchen could be hiding a fortune. It means the jar of change you inherited from your grandfather might be worth more than you ever imagined. It means the next time you see a 1968 penny, you need to stop, hold it up to the light, and look closer. Because one missing mint mark could mean the difference between spare change and life-changing wealth. And here's the final secret that keeps collectors awake at night. Some experts believe more of these coins are still hiding in circulation. They're just waiting to be found. Every grocery store, every cash register, every bankroll is another chance. Which means someone, maybe even you, could be the next person to pull a $1.7 million penny out of their pocket. So the next time you're about to toss a penny aside, think twice. Because this exact coin, the 1968 no mint mark Lincoln penny, could be sitting in your drawer right now. And it's worth over $1 million. This coin almost ended up in the trash, but instead, it shocked the entire collecting world by being worth nearly $2 million. Yes, a simple 1991 penny, the kind you've probably tossed aside without a second thought, has sold for as much as $1.8 million. That's not ancient, not from the 1800s, not even rare enough to sound special. Millions were made. They're everywhere. But what if I told you that hidden among those ordinary copper-colored coins is one of the rarest and most mysterious errors the U.S. Mint ever let slip through? And what if one of those coins was still sitting in your change jar right now? This story begins in 1991, a year most of us remember for gas prices under $1.20, payphones on every corner, and pocket change jingling in every American's jeans. Nobody thought twice about pennies. They were simply the smallest unit of money. But somewhere, in the massive presses of the Philadelphia Mint, a mistake was made. A mistake so small, so subtle, that even the mint itself didn't realize what it had unleashed into circulation. Collectors would later call it a miracle coin. Dealers would whisper about it at shows, half in disbelief, half in awe. And when the first one hit the auction block, jaws dropped. But let's slow down. Because the real magic of this coin isn't just its age, or even its design. It's about what's missing. You see, most pennies carry a tiny mint mark, a D for Denver or an S for San Francisco. But in 1991, something bizarre happened. A small number of coins left the mint with no mark at all. Just a clean, bare space where a mint mark should have been. To most people, this looks like nothing. Just a normal penny. But to those who know, this tiny omission is everything. Because that missing letter transforms a 1-cent coin into a treasure worth a fortune. Collectors were stunned. Dealers rushed to verify the authenticity. At first, rumors swirled. Could it be fake? Was it just worn away? But then the grading companies confirmed this was real. A legitimate U.S. Mint error. And the world of numismatics would never be the same. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. At auction, one of these 1991 no mint mark Lincoln pennies crossed the block. The bidding started modestly, a few hundred, then a few thousand. Within minutes, it was in the tens of thousands. The room buzzed, hands shot up, phones rang with frantic offers. And when the gavel finally fell, the price tag was staggering, over $1 million. A penny that could have been left on a diner counter, now worth more than a luxury home. Because rarity is everything. Out of the billions of pennies minted in 1991, only a handful carry this shocking error. That's what drives collectors wild. Imagine a lottery ticket printed by mistake. If only 5 exist, everyone wants one. That's the magic formula. And here's where it gets interesting. These coins didn't just vanish into private collections. Some were discovered in the most unexpected places. One story tells of a man who found his in a handful of change from a soda machine. Another woman spotted hers in a box of pennies she was about to cash in at the bank. One man's pocket change became $1 million miracle. But this tiny detail is why it's worth millions, and most people miss it. Look closely. The difference between an ordinary penny and a life-changing one is no bigger than a grain of sand. That missing mint mark. If you're not paying attention, you'll never notice. But if you do, everything changes. Now let's talk about how to spot one. The first step is to pick up any 1991 penny you have. Flip it over, examine the obverse. That's the side with Lincoln's portrait. Just below the date, you'll normally see a small D or an S. If that's there, congratulations, you've got a regular penny worth 1 cent. But if that tiny mint mark is completely missing, you may have something extraordinary. But here's the catch, don't be fooled. Sometimes mint marks can wear away with age, circulation, or damage. That doesn't count. What you're looking for is a clean strike. Sharp details everywhere else, but absolutely no mint mark beneath the date. That's the real deal. Don't spend it. Don't clean it. Don't toss it in a jar. Get it authenticated immediately. Because every year, more of these coins vanish into private collections, and every year, the value climbs higher. Dealers are rushing to get their hands on this coin. Auction houses list them with pride, knowing the buzz they generate. And collectors? They dream of the moment they'll find one in the wild. Because this isn't just about money. It's about owning a piece of history. A mistake that should never have left the mint. A coin that shouldn't exist, but does. Think about it. Every penny you've ever ignored, every coin you've ever dropped into a couch cushion, could be worth more than your car, your house, maybe even your retirement fund. All because of one missing letter, and that's why you must start looking. Right now. Pull out your change jar, open that old coffee can, dig through the coins in your drawer. Because these coins are still out there. They're hiding in plain sight, waiting to be discovered. Collectors were shocked when the first sold for over $1 million. They were stunned when another surfaced, proving it wasn't just a one-time fluke. And now, with values climbing as high as $1.8 million, the excitement has never been greater. This is your wake-up call. Don't ignore the pennies. Don't dismiss them as worthless. Because the smallest coin in your pocket could hold the biggest surprise of your life. 1991. No mint mark. Crisp details. A simple penny that looks ordinary, until you know the truth. This exact penny could be sitting in